I'm Hiko, the Master Baiter, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube.
Right, we're here for another episode. This one is mainly the EU gang or people who aren't at work at 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. in certain parts of America. So can't say it's going to be everyone, but then again, it's always a weird. There's actually no way to predict who turns up anyway or who's available. Don't know what that says about my fan base, that people just don't even know themselves where they're going to be in their own life at a certain time. So okay, let's start the episode. Right, Zen, the non-Fox fan, yes. Portuguese person. Is CSGO even your main game? What did you say last episode? It was like CSGO.
No, it's League of Legends.
League of Legends, right, okay.
Yeah.
In that case, you shouldn't even bother with the Fox shit. Like, just stick with the League of Legends side of things. No problem there. Right, do you have a topic in mind you'd like to talk about?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the new champ in Overwatch, Brigitte. That basically she has a stun and a knockback apparently, and they're now going through the thing of, oh, there's this power creep. All the new heroes are powerful. Do we have to rebalance them right after? Is this like? Do you think basically? So League of Legends went through this obviously, and before that, any other game that introduces new heroes. What do you think is a good solution? Do you think? Is it avoidable at all, or will they eventually stop when they sold enough skins or whatever?
Yeah.
What do you think is the solution to this?
That is the weirdest part about that topic, because the problem is, I think what fucks everyone's brain up is that you either compare League of Legends to other esports. So in theory, even though it's clearly not true, right? The premise of Counter-Strike in general is to try and balance the guns. So there's like a logic as to how much they each get used, etc. That doesn't really work out in practice. But you know what? As a premise, it's not like the most ridiculous premise. Yeah. The problem is, though, in League of Legends, obviously they almost overwhelmingly balance for the casual. Like they just don't really balance for pro play, if I'm being honest, at all. And I think there's just very rare times it overlaps and it looks like they did, but I don't think they ever really have. So the problem is, I feel like League of Legends will always get fucked by being a MOBA, so people will always compare it to DotA. But the problem is, in DotA, they don't really have that same business model. Like, they're not trying to get you to buy the champion of the hero, because obviously you've already got it in the game. So they have no incentive themselves to make you want to buy a specific hero. Likewise, the skins aren't really the same. Like, that's not really a thing in the same way in Dota, you know? Like, people actually also don't seem to be as hyped about buying the skins as they are in League. Because I've always felt like part of the reason people buy the skins in League is, yeah, you know what? Some of them look cool. I mean, I don't buy them myself, but okay, some of them look cool. But I think part of the reason you buy the skins in League is to be like, oh, look, I've got a skin that you guys haven't. Like, this implies I'm more hardcore into the game than you or something. That's always been like a really weird angle, but I get why it works, because if you've ever seen what like a 16-year-old is like, the number one goal of a 16-year-old is to explain to you that they are the number one fan of whatever thing they're into. Like, they're not just someone who plays a game, they're a gamer. They're not just someone who happens to have listened to a record by the fucking Cure, they're a goth. You know, like, whatever they're into, they have to explain to you that they're the most into it for obvious reasons, because they haven't yet got a personality. So in the absence of a personality, they must desperately cling on to the notion that, because if you think about it, they look around the world, they see everyone else, and everyone else seems fully formed. So they're going, shit, what? Am I the only one who doesn't have incredibly strong? No! Quick, put on the fake mask. No, I do. I'm totally into this one thing here. And that's, yeah, I'm the most hardcore fan ever. So cycling that back, my point is this. I actually think League of Legends started out as just not that great a designed game. But whoever came along with the concept of how to use the balance to effectively keep the business model running, that is fucking genius. Because obviously it does seem like it would be a big coincidence if their constant balancing kept throwing up totally different champions to be in the meta, and then because those champions are in the meta, you now either need to buy them or use your IP for them, and then when you already have them, maybe buy new skins for them. Like, it is awfully suspicious how they tend to sort of cycle through the different champions in the game, and some of them go out for years, but they still almost inevitably all come back. So the big problem is this. If that is your business model, I can't really suggest anything that goes against that concept, because it does make you a lot of fucking money. I mean, that's a game that makes a massive amount of revenue.
Yeah.
So as a business model, as far as I can tell, League of Legends is doing great. They're doing exactly what they want to do. The problem is, if you or I talk about the game, we want it balanced to be a good game. So I have to say, just looking at the way Dota's been done, since it doesn't have that business model, Dota seems like one of the best balance methods I've ever seen, because first of all, think about it in League. You can have, like, heroes can change position, and sometimes you might get a hero. Like, the most I've ever seen is 3 positions you could reasonably flex it into. Reasonably more, probably 2. But even so, that usually just means, it's like that old joke, right? That everything starts in the mid lane, and then when it gets fucked up enough, it might go to support. And if it only gets half fucked up, it goes to top lane. And then if it gets fucked up where they attach a smite to it, it becomes a jungler. Like, that's almost the joke of the game, because that's kind of how it works. Whereas I don't know if you know about Dota, but in Dota, at certain points in time, any hero could, in theory, be played in any role simultaneous to it still existing in whatever the strongest role is. And then likewise, if somehow you were either good enough on the hero or the comp made sense, in theory any hero could be played in the game as well. So that tells me that these two games aren't even in the same universe. It's like a fucking octopus and a human. In theory there was some common ancestor, but it's so far away and everything's evolved so differently that it, like, you couldn't really look at anything about how an octopus works and goes, oh, we could make a human like that. Like, it's just too far different. So it sounds like a non-answer, but my answer basically is, I think League of Legends, if their actual goal is to make money, they're probably the fucking best we've ever seen at it. And then in terms of actually balancing games, like with this new hero Bridge Eater, because I agree, it just looks like the Riot approach, where the new champion or hero is massively OP. Like, the joke in League of Legends always was, like, they always end up with shit that should be like a fucking ability with like a mana cost as like a passive to start the game with when they come out, because they're so broken. Like that Xin Zhao, that release, that was like, no one in their right mind really believed that was fine. But guess what? If you release that, I might fucking buy that if I don't want to grind out for it. What? Do I want to miss the first 2 weeks when it's OP, or do I want to grind and try and get the cost to actually buy this champion? No, I'm just going to buy it, aren't I? So that's the problem. We always have an unfair discussion when we talk about balance, because I don't think they're trying to balance it. I don't think they ever were. I think that's just like political. You just lie and say you were. Like, why would you not? If you're already going to get away with balancing it to make yourself all the money, and then people go, how do you balance the game? Am I going to go, I just want to fuck all of you for money? Like, you're not going to say that in PR, are you? You're going to say, oh, you know what, Redditor? I just really want you to have the best game. And then they go, see, stop bullying Riot. They want the best for us.
Fair enough.
Well,
okay, someone else. Come on.
I think another advantage that Dota has is that it already had like a whole game that was balanced beforehand.
Yeah.
So Dota 1, it basically just straight imported everything from that.
And there were only hardcore players, essentially.
Yeah,
so
and
no one to pander to.
Exactly. And also another like smaller thing is that a lot of the power of different heroes is in the weapons, and there aren't summoner spells. So that I think that is another reason why you can literally play anything in any role in Dota.
Well, this is also the part people misunderstand, right? Is that the whole point is, if I am ahead of you in the game, then my hero becomes super powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the hero itself. Whereas actually in a league context, that's one of the parts that's so bizarre. It's like, for example, I mean, this exists already. It's called skill matchups, isn't it? It's like, if I can survive the first levels or stay roughly even in CS, then later on in the game, I might get the advantage. But like, that is inherently a garbage way to make a competitive game. Like, what a terrible system. That would be like if in Starcraft, like one of the races, I mean, it sort of was a little bit like this, but not as extreme. It'd be like if one of the races just had like a 70% chance of dying in the first 5 minutes, but if they could survive that, they got super powerful at the end. Right? Who would choose that as a way to make the game? That's a terrible way to make the game. The best way to make a game would be, obviously the races, like the heroes, have to be different, so they can't have an equal chance, but it should somehow be informed by your decisions and your skill as well. You know, you'd hope that like it attenuates it. Whereas, yeah, certain aspects of League are terrible in that respect. Not least because, I mean, if you think about it, they never properly buff stuff. They do little buffs to things. All they do is they just decide how much to crush things from how ridiculously powerful they are at the beginning, and then they nerf them into the ground.
Yeah.
Yep. Pretty much.
But like I say, I can't hate on them, because if the model was to make money, they're probably the best, right? Who's better than them? No one, as far as I can tell. And
Blizzard does the same thing, and they just do it to sell skins for characters, basically.
Yeah. And, like, put it this way, you know that, like, one of my favourite sayings in life, it's a British saying, is that no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
So, for example,
That's
you know,
true.
if you help out the guy who's annoying in your group, guess what? That motherfucker's going to try and come around your house 10 times and invite you to his birthday. You know, like, you can't get away with doing an act of kindness. So, in the same sense, you know what? Jokes on Blizzard, they actually tried to make, as far as I can tell, a pretty good game. Like, they made it an FPS, it had, like, skill-based elements. Well, what do you know? Every pleb in the world doesn't want to play that or watch that. Get fucked. You tried to do a good thing, get fucked for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mihan, you play Dota? I think you said you did.
No, I know a bit about Dota, but I don't know anything about League of Legends, though.
You don't?
I mean,
you just CS?
I watch your reflection with Bjausen. That's the only thing I've ever done with League of Legends. Yeah, basically I watch CS and some Dota tournaments, basically.
Okay.
And I, in general, just follow esports, like, all around. Some battle royales also, which is not. I'm sure you don't think it's an esport, but I mean.
Here's the thing, I don't even understand the premise of the argument. Like, first of all, anything can be an esport. Like, Hearthstone is an esport.
Yeah.
I mean, League of Legends is an esport. You know, League of Legends essentially comes from someone taking Warcraft 3 and going, can we make this way easier? That's so, like, by definition, it is a much, much worse version of Warcraft 3. So the bizarre thing about the discussion, though, is if you want to be as like literal as possible, yeah, anything can become an esport. But here's what's funny: Fortnite hasn't even managed that. Neither has PUBG. Because to become an esport on that basic level, okay, now you've got to put together tournaments, you've got to have a coherent circuit, you've got to have pro teams, you've got to have pro players, you've got to have a viewer base. Now, PUBG got like the very, very, very bare minimum of that, and even then didn't really get much momentum up. Like, hasn't really like made any penetration. Fortnite still hasn't done even that, as far as I can tell. Like, that's why I made this point on Twitter, right? And almost everyone replying to me was just locked in a prison of cognitive dissonance. All I said was, all I basically said was, if the only things I ever hear about Fortnite from my position in esports is that it's the future of esports, but they only want to tell me about one player, that's kind of a bit of a bizarre scenario, isn't it? Like, if it's esports, why don't I know about the top 5 players? Why don't I know about like who the hot young talent is? All I know about is a guy who explicitly is not a pro player. He's the most popular streamer who plays Fortnite. So what's weird is they're the ones making the case it's not an esport with all of their actions and how they market it. Like, if I was marketing an esport, I wouldn't pick one player who doesn't even play the game as a pro. So definitely, by the way, Fortnite could become an esport. The reason why I'm not sure it will be, though, is because, like, everyone's real quick to skip over the fact that, like, okay, we have the prize purse and we have the casual players. You know what? Those are 2 really essential parts to have an esport. But to have the tournaments, you got to have a rule set and you got to have a format for the tournament and you've got to have a way in which it makes sense for people to win in the game. Like, as much as everyone thinks right now, well, I guarantee if any of you guys watch Fortnite, I'm sure if they had a tournament tomorrow that really did get like the top 10 streamers to play, you'd probably watch it out of curiosity. You know, you've seen them guys play before. But would you keep watching if you realised that to win the tournament, you didn't actually have to win the round? And that someone came 4th, 3rd and 5th and he won the tournament? I mean, part of me feels like that would feel like it wasn't like, what was the point? Like, I'm watching to watch someone win. You know, what you win because you lost the least. Likewise, say you watch Ninja because you love watching him play because he's entertaining, he's quite good at the game. Or would you watch a stream where they're switching around and you only get to watch Ninja every now and then and you're watching some other guy at another point in time and then you have to switch to another player because we're having to cycle through all these people to keep a track of them all? It's a very hard concept to follow. I mean, what's funny is the reason why I'll give you a great analogy, in my opinion, as to why I don't think it'd work is because, okay, they made a professional sport out of poker, No Limit Hold'em. So if you've ever watched that show that they used to put on ESPN where they do the World Series of Poker and they do the main event, right? And that's obviously, it's actually sick to watch. But what's great about how they do it is, right, think about the premise they had. So at one point in time, I think maybe like 8,000 people one year entered that tournament. How the fuck are you going to follow 8,000 people? Well, they don't. What they do is they pick out a few interesting people. So a couple of pros who have a good chance of making it, some amateurs that are making it will have a great backstory. And obviously they start with a massive amount. They'll probably start with like 40 of them. And as it goes down through the field, first of all, they don't produce a single one of the shows until the whole tournament's finished. So they know who makes it to the final table, and they know who's, and they basically, by knowing what's happened, they know who to follow, which stories to not bother showing you that they recorded. And at the end of it, they've got the right stories to take you through the journey of what happened at the world. Now, we can't do that. It's all live. Yep. You've got 100 people.
Yeah.
Like, I actually don't even understand the premise. And yet what's weird is I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying, like, well, what's the... It's like this joke, okay? There's a great joke that Ricky Gervais made where he said that whenever people comment that Leonardo da Vinci, right, in all of his, like, sketches he had, like his schematic sketches, well, one of them, famously, people always say that he invented the helicopter because there's a sketch that looks like a helicopter. So Ricky Gervais's joke is... He didn't really, did he? He just drew something that looks like a helicopter. Like, if you said to him, but Leonardo, how would it fly? He'd go like, how would he know? He doesn't know fucking anything about how a helicopter would work. Like, he didn't invent it, did he? So my point is just this. If Fortnite or PUBG or any of those games, Battle Royale games, if any of them are going to be an esport, they've actually got all their work ahead of them. Even getting the 100 million and the casual viewer base. Listen, Overwatch will tell you about a casual viewer base. Now, that doesn't convert into streaming viewers. There's tons of games that have had fucking money pumped into them that never made it as esports. So what I don't get is, you have all these people who, as far as I can tell, love to play Fortnite or they love to watch Ninja stream. I get all that. That's fine. You can do that. But why would that then make the leap from that to like, it's an esport and it will be the future? It's just kind of weird to me. I mean, do any of you guys watch these games? Is there anything, have you got any thoughts on this?
I've watched, you go first.
No, you go. You good.
Okay. I watched the PUBG tournaments that had both online and LAN, and it's a terrible viewing experience. It's so
like, really. Do you actually like to watch PUBG? Do you ever watch streamers?
I watched Shroud in the beginning and some other streamers, but I've gotten like pretty tired of it.
How did the stream of the tournament compare to that? Like, was there aspects to it that were different and cool in their own way?
No, I don't think so. It was really boring overall compared to watching a regular streamer stream. Like, the viewing experience is terrible. There's pretty much you catch so little kills, and like, it's such a defensive game where the first 20 minutes is basically just people hiding and shooting on the occasional car, and they don't do much. And in the end, like, everybody dies in 4 minutes. There's like 60 kills, and you catch like 6 of them. So they have like such a big challenge, like trying to catch all the kills. Like, they're gonna do something like in poker where you show it like what's the word? Where you show it like where you know what's gonna happen, and then you know it afterwards.
After the fact.
So you can tell the story of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, you get nothing out of it. I don't think it's. I don't know how.
When they actually ran the tournament, was it just like essentially just the same as a public game in terms of how it started? Like, for example, do you all just like jetpack in, and then in theory, if like, let's say Ninja was playing in this, I mean, obviously he plays Fortnite, but let's say he was playing in this tournament and you're the biggest Ninja fan ever, you tuned in because you want to see if he wins the tournament, he can effectively just land, and then another guy who's next to a gun and just shoots him instantly, right?
Yeah.
That's also got to be a massive killer for your game. Imagine if Michael Jordan just comes out and then the only equivalent I can basically give you is someone just punches him in the face, knocks him out at the fucking tip, and then they carry him off on a stretcher, and then everyone's like, where's Michael Jordan? Like, oh yeah, he got knocked the fuck out. Like, he's out, mate. Like, that has to be the worst experience I can ever think of.
Yeah.
But there's no kills in the first 15 minutes. People are just
everyone camps.
Pretty much. Yeah, I've seen some PUBG streams. Like, there's the PUBG Invitational that was last year.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, it was boring. They basically played like 3 games and they couldn't catch any kills. Like, the thing that seems like the biggest challenge for Battle Royale is just like a logistical one, where like. If they're going to have LANs, or for one, if they're going to have LANs, then they literally have to have like 100 computers. That's like an ass load of money they have to spend just on computers. Yes. And then you have to get that all the players there, and then you have to have enough observers that would be able to catch all the action and not miss everything. Otherwise, the viewing experience is going to be shit. And then, I mean, there's just so many logistical problems. And then if you're like, okay, well, then we'll just play it online. Then it's like it's an online game. It, the integrity isn't there all the way.
And if you haven't watched it, Thorin, imagine like you remember like whole HLTV when you watched it in 1.6, how it was like laggy and didn't really. It's not like it wasn't like watching an in-eye demo. This is like the same but way worse. Like you can't see spray patterns. You can see like it's almost like everything is delayed, just like HLTV.
Inside the view on the stream.
Yeah,
because they use the spectator client for PUBG. It sucks. Yeah, and
wow, okay, that's even worse than I thought.
And they show a lot of the times they'll show all of the names. Like you can literally they'll be really zoomed up high.
Right.
You can see you can tell where everybody is, but they'll have a little transparent name. And there's like a bazillion of them everywhere, and it's hard to tell where everybody is or what the hell they're doing if they're zoomed out. So. Yeah, it sucks. Trust me. I'm an expert on esports, so having seen that $100 million prize pool announcement, please hit the DM button, send me a DM to my Twitter. I'm an expert.
Because the weirdest part about that to me as well is exactly that, like that their initial idea is to just brute force what is the casual game to be the esports side. Like if I was trying to help them, say they came along and like for some reason, I don't know, the fucking Earth gets destroyed unless I can help make Fortnite an esport. The first thing I would probably recommend is something like, well, obviously 100 to 1's not going to work for all the reasons we've just outlined. So I would say, right, you're going to need a custom map that's small, and we're only going to play a 10 to 1 each time, and that way, and we're going to have to probably even put some shit in, like I said before, like you can't spawn next to each other so that you can't just instantly, the problem is you could do these things, but even then, isn't that like half the game gone? Like, isn't half of what makes it fun? There's so many people you can shoot, you can go on like a mad kill streak and get all the super good guns, and it's supposed to take like 10 minutes or whatever.
Yep.
And I feel like you'd ruin the fun part if you did that though. And
that also kind of would completely change the way the balance is, because you'd have to have like basically an flat, even amount of gun spawns everywhere. Whereas in the actual game, they're concentrated in different cities or different, loot areas. And
am I wrong with this, by the way? Like, I'm asking these questions as a complete layman, honestly. Like, am I naive in thinking that another reason why people love those games is because since you're playing it as a third person and you're shooting the guns, you don't have to be quite as good as an FPS game with actually like aiming a crosshair onto someone?
Actually, in PUBG, they play first person, I think.
You do?
Pro games, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
It's first person.
And do they show that when you're on the...
Yeah. Stream? Well, they switch between third and first. Like,
okay.
So
in the beginning of the game, they do third person because there's nothing happening, nobody's shooting, so might as well just do third person or like some random overview. And they go to first person in the end, where there's kills.
Yeah, but first and third person are different modes of PUBG.
Right. Okay.
So, yep.
Yeah.
Fortnite is a fantastic game. Please send me. Please hire me as a consultant. I understand esports culture. I want part of that $100 million.
Alex, who did you root for in the finals? In the finals the other day, since you're wearing that shirt.
Yeah, I don't know. Who could I have possibly been rooting for?
Yeah, I mean, you're American, right?
Could it be? Yes, I am, but I don't really. I thought
you were all patriotic, like a regular American.
I don't really do that. I just like watching the good players play and play at some of the highest levels possible. Like,
you have excellent taste, my friend.
That's actually one of the things That's one of the things I've always loved about Americans, actually, the way they're like, we have the freedom to think and do whatever we want. Now, everyone, support our army and believe in only American. Like, come on, man. We're not listening to the first sentence there. Come on, give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to see your own country do well.
Sure.
You know? I mean, they were in the final, but I prefer the highest level of CS possible. Like watching Astralis throw those nades and just fucking kill somebody with a random nade stack, like, or not really random, but you understand what I mean? Like, that's awesome. Like that's the thing that makes that team unique in the history of CS, is like how they just destroy people with utility.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Plus, I think the thing at the moment that's really underrated, because the problem is whenever you innovate something like that, in theory, there's nothing to stop everyone else taking it. So, for example, early on in the original Counter-Strike, one of the things was, especially NA teams actually used to put loads of focus into like weird boosts that no one had seen. But the problem is, as soon as you do it, well, the other team now can see it, and then, 2 games later, someone's doing it against you. So, as good as it is, you only get a little bit of kind of like longevity out of the move being yours. Well, what's funny is you already have seen, we've now had like 3 tournaments and there's no other teams doing the shit that Astralis is doing. Well, one of the reasons why, in my opinion, is like, first of all, a lot of the teams don't practice properly. Like teams like FaZe, based on what I'm aware of, don't practice the same way that teams like Astralis do. Like they're just not as structured and disciplined, and the way they practice is more like, keep your level up or some sort of shit like that, Well, even beyond that, I also think the most underrated aspect of Astralis right now is like, man for man, they have to have the most versatile CS team maybe ever. Think about all the different roles all those players can play in that team. Because remember, Greb himself, when he was in the heroic team, wasn't even the main caller. He was playing as like the secondary caller. He's obviously got like miles better fragging than any in-game leader has any right having for someone who's like a tactician. Dupree's literally played 2 or 3 different roles now. Magus has played a couple of different. Device obviously can go all over the place. Zipnix is like the most overqualified support player you're probably ever going to get. So it's like, what's mad is when you look at it, it doesn't matter if people figure it out. You can't do some of the shit they're doing. You wouldn't have the team to do it.
Yep. I mean, like there's always, I've noticed like just in competition in general, whether it's, esports or basketball or whatever, like you got to have those guys that literally break the rules to like be an all-time great team. So like Jonak in Owl right now, like he plays Zenyatta so much better than anybody else. He can do things that are against like the rules, quote unquote, of playing Overwatch, like at a professional level. Or like Steph Curry literally shooting from like 40 feet away. Like he breaks the rules. Like you got to have guys who can break the rules like that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, what's funny is the analogy here would be kind of like the Warriors they have now, because I always thought the part that people never fully factored in when they talked about Steph Curry, because by the way, he is obviously insane, especially how he can shoot off the dribble. But the stupidest part is the most OP thing about the Warriors is that they had Steph Curry and fucking Klay Thompson so early. So remember, if you double teamed onto him, you were giving up the second best shooter of open 3-pointers or one-on-one coverage. So if you had the 2 together, it's like the Astralis example. If you just had like 1 or 2 of these players, which they obviously did at some point in time, that's pretty OP. But if you have a bunch of them together, that's just such a problem to deal with, There's not really a solution to it. You have to just... In fact, actually, that's the stupid thing, isn't it? The real way to beat Astralis wouldn't be to try and figure out all the shit they're doing now and do it back to them. It would be to go in a totally different direction. That's why, actually, the real move I want to see is I want Olaf Meister to come back and just put that old FaZe lineup back together again and fucking make them go head-to-head. That would be exciting as hell. What a great games you could have from that, right?
Yep. It'll be exactly... Or not, maybe not exactly, but sort of like the current Western Conference Finals, where there's such a clash of play styles, where like the Warriors are like the ball movement, like the really team based offense, and then the Rockets are literally isolate
ISO ball all day long. Yeah,
ISO Harden or Chris Paul. They're the number 1 and 2 guys most efficient in the league in
no doubt,
isolation, and they're the number 1 and 2 in volume. So they're both the most efficient and use the most isolation possessions in the league. So it's such a clash of styles, like they're tied 2-2 at the moment. So it's a good series, even though all the games have been blowouts.
The other factor I will say though,
not the one yesterday.
I guess that one hasn't been as much, but
that wasn't as bad. Yeah. The one thing I will say about Astralis though is I do think that we're going to have a lot more really great games as opposed to blowouts, because the problem I have is, like, sure, it's not all the same players who are having the same insane tournaments one after another, but like there've been too many tournaments where they've had like, 3 players will just be like top rated players. That's like that just is very implausible. And that will hold, it just doesn't tend to for teams. And in fact, if you look throughout people's histories, you tend to get those earlier on. That's why I actually really do believe in that concept of like the window that you have, because it's like the more you play people, it doesn't matter how good you are in sense training them what not to do when they lose to you. Yeah.
And like on that point of like not having everybody, play at the same level all the time, if that does happen, then it just means like you're the greatest team ever.
Well, it's like the example when FaZe, this is one of those things, I've mentioned it so many times, I won't go over it again, but basically, when FaZe won that first tournament undefeated, where they won New York and they just wrecked everyone, and half the teams weren't even getting double digits against them, someone actually did an interview with me on location in New York, and they said to me something along the lines of like, oh, well, you must be like really high on FaZe now. And believe it or not, I actually gave them like a 20-minute answer, like, actually, no, I don't think they'll even be that great. I think they'll be like a really good team, but they probably will win like a few championships here and there, but I don't think they'll become like the number one dominant team. And one of my reasons why was I unfolded like kind of how I saw CS. And my conclusion at the end was, if they do it, obviously I'll have to tip my hat and I'll have to say, you know what, time for me to reconsider everything I know about Counter-Strike, team games, how you balance personalities. Because I said basically they would have just broken every paradigm I have. Now, luckily, as it turns out, I don't have to start from fucking scratch all over again and break everything.
Those rules exist for a reason.
I mean, I don't think anyone disagrees that the Astralis is playing great, but don't you think that all the other teams are kind of fucking up? But you don't have a dominant FaZe or even SK or even one of those teams like G2 or Navi that aren't great, but they can at any day win. Like, none of those teams are now playing that great. So is this part of the thing?
Put it this way, I would put it this way, is like, I mean, anyone who watches basketball especially, this is a sport that I think has a massive parallel to Counter-Strike, because one of the unfair things about basketball and Counter-Strike is that on some level, you preach to everyone it's a team game. It's all about how good the team is, and you can only be as good as like the weakest link, and you've all got to work together. That is all so true in both basketball and Counter-Strike. But I can tell you what happens when you have the best overall team that's just players who all work together, and that's your main strength, is you go quite far and you never win the championship. Whereas what happens is, when you get to the championship level in basketball and Counter-Strike, the other team you're playing, okay, you might actually have better team play than them or better tactics or whatever. But the problem is, if theirs is good enough that then them having the best player in the world can have an impact, they will win because they have a guy who can win one map for you anytime or one game for you anytime. And unfortunately, that tends to happen in these games because they're 5v5 games, so one guy in one game or one map can have an insane impact in one round in Counter-Strike, obviously, and can win you the whole match. And so typically, the best teams of all time, it's not really a coincidence, they often either had the best player in the world or just one of the best at the time. So what I'll say is, I'd kind of take your point there and I'll merge it with the big problem I would say right now is that the other teams that I see at the top, so Mouse Sports, Team Liquid, Fnatic, FaZe to some degree, right? Except for FaZe, I don't think those other teams have someone who's a real candidate to be best player in the world. Like, as good as anyone thinks Naf is, yeah, he's like the 7th best player in the world. No one's saying like he could be number 1. Like, no one is. If you go to Oscar, you know what? He's a pretty good fucking player, but he's not the best. If you go to Fnatic, okay, I would say that Crims is a pretty beast player. He's going to be like the 4th best player or something. He's never going to be the number 1 player in the world. So the problem you have there is the people who you would put as like the top 5, aside from the ones on FaZe who have their own issues, people like the Cold Zeros of the world, Kenny S, Shocks, the ones you want to see, yeah, you're right. Their teams aren't in the mix right now. So I agree. And by the way, it's almost inevitable at least one of these teams is going to get to their shit together in the next few months. Whichever one of them gets their shit together so they can basically make a platform on which one of those players could be the best player. So obviously, the most obvious one that could change overnight is like Na'Vi. If they were to just get like the one extra player or figure one thing out, then already people could beat Astralis probably, because you could have the one thing Astralis can't have, right? The best player in the server.
Yep.
Because they in theory could have it, but actually, if anything, this is something I often wondered about with Astralis. I almost feel like because they play so structured, I don't think Device could be the best player in the world because of that reason, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you're still playing to some degree within a team structure, whereas part of being like the god player is you sort of have to be fully unleashed and just do whatever you want in a mad way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, like, all the time when in the past when players like former stars would go to like a team like the Spurs or something like that, like a really heavily structured team, their numbers would like always go down. Like LaMarcus Aldridge, I guess, is the most recent example. His numbers went way down, but he was in a better team. So, you know, sometimes you got to let the guy go if it'll make the team better, I guess. Or you can just be like LeBron and just be better than everybody and win a championship.
And you've got to know what you want to do, you know. Like, for example, if I'm not the best player, I probably wouldn't try to be like the star of a team and carry the whole team, because if I want to also win, I probably need to be with other good players and go for a team structure. But if I actually thought I could be the best player ever, I'd go the fucking simple route and be in Na'Vi, because it's like I said, if he'd have won even one of these tournaments, we'd all have to literally like make a fucking statue of this guy and like bow to it every day, because if he could have won one of these tournaments with those lineups he has, like, you're just fucking god, aren't you? Especially that one where he obviously was like a couple of rounds from winning that Star Series, wasn't he? Where that was when Na'Vi was garbage as well. Like, Electronic was just average back then. Like, that would have been the most ridiculous one-man feat ever in Counter-Strike, I reckon.
Yep.
Yeah. Was that the one where they lost to Mouse Sports in the final?
Yes.
Where he got
where he almost won in regulation, but where he was, and every round it was just them coming to the A site and him just killing 3 people and not even always winning the round, obviously.
Yeah.
It was so sick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think the new or future rumored G2 with Shocks and Kenny S can do that?
Mate, I think I'm the only one who thinks they can do that, apparently. Everyone else has just bailed on the idea before it's even happened. I don't understand why, though, because this is the part that's so weird. So everyone tells me all day long that I only care about like skilled players and star players and that I don't understand the team concept of the game. And then what happens is you have like veteran players who work together, who have like a very in-depth understanding of the game, and then all of you guys are like, yeah, but their fragging's not going to, like, all right, fucking hell, you can't be both ways, can you, mate? Come on, is it about team play or not? I mean, if you like look at the current Fnatic lineup, right? On paper, there is no way that Fnatic lineup should ever be able to win a tournament like they did at that IEM. They shouldn't be able to finish top 4. Look at the lineup they have. that lineup literally should be where it was when it first began. Do you remember when they first brought that lineup out after the player break? And they were sort of like, you know, they were maybe like the 8th best team. They were like all right, but they weren't amazing. That's more like what you would look on paper and say that's what that team should be like. So whatever they did in the meantime, fucking great job, amazing, salute. I don't know how you did it. It's a bit like with Mouse Sports. Because they don't win tournaments at the moment, I have to be super critical of them. But all the time I'm critiquing them, I do just want to step back and go, look at who's in the fucking lineup. None of these are like super godlike players that we all were saying was sick a year ago, you know? Like, every player's sort of a misfit and someone who obviously can't be in a team in their domestic. So actually what they're accomplishing is fucking amazing. They're overachievers, if anything.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in the case of Fnatic, it took Flusha going like literally fucking nuclear to win that tournament. It was,
well, plus it also turned out, it also turned out in that team in a way I would never have been able to predict, that like there's actually like a really good balance of the different players and like their styles of play and like what their strengths are. So for example, I actually think Lekro, he's clearly like a skilled player, but he's not like a star player for me because he doesn't do it like with consistency. But that like really aggressive skill style that he has is well offset by, for example, someone like Flusha, who's like quite a well-rounded player and like doesn't go super high. It's like all the different players in a weird way balance each other. Like Crims is like super stable, so then that allows JW to just go fucking ham and do whatever he wants and try really risky shit. It's like they actually have a pretty solid balance in that team. The only flaw is, this is one of the reasons why I think Astralis is the clear number 1 right now, is that if you look at those 3 teams, which like for me, Mouse Sports, Team Liquid and Fnatic should on paper be some of the most consistent teams we have. But they also all seem completely capped out. Like, I don't know how they get better than they are right now. Like, the players seem capped out, the team's capped out, the map pool's capped. Like, That's why they are placeholders for me. They're just sort of waiting until G2 get their shit together. Fucking SK get their shit together. You know, like one of these, like it seems impossible that like 3 of these teams can fuck up forever and not give their team a chance to win, right? Yeah. I don't know who it'll be, but someone has to figure it out. It's just Counter-Strike.
Somebody I don't think that simple.
I don't think that Liquid is kept out yet, though. I mean, I agree with Fnatic, but Liquid's like, I think the addition of Taco was pretty good for them, or it's going to be pretty good for them in the long run. And they still have like some of the best players in NA. Have Twisted and Taco and what's the last guy? Neff. You said it yourself. And I mean, I don't think they're kept out at all. It wasn't their first or second event with Taco. They haven't even had time to practice yet. I mean, I don't think they're kept out. I don't know how high you rate them, obviously, but I mean, I'm guessing.
I mean, more right now, as in like, here's the thing: if I had to guess, in the future, Twists almost certainly could be better. Elige probably could be still pretty good already. Naf, he's already pretty good, but maybe he could get better. The problem is, though, I actually feel like this is an example of a team where I actually think that the fact that they're all in one team might be what limits them. Because I feel like if you just took 2 of those players and were like, these are our main players, we're going to play around these guys, everything goes through them, I think they would probably perform better. Whereas it's a bit like that current FaZe team they have. I think actually that Guardian and FaZe play better in this, Guardian and Nico play better in this phase than they did in the one with Olofmeister. Because in a way, like, well, you're never going to have Exist just frag out, so you have to be the star players. So in a mad way, I think it actually sort of hones your mind to be up more in the task, as it were. And I think actually that's been Team Liquid's problem for a long time, is they stacked all these star players together. And so you end up with almost like a mentality of like, oh, we can do it by committee. Like, oh, I'm not having such a great game. It's like if you're simple in Na'Vi, you can't go, sorry guys, I'm not having such a great game, so yeah, I'm off. Like, you have to go ham.
Yeah, that's the classic spectators' wet dream to get like 4 stars.
Of course, yeah.
And I don't. Yeah, it worked with FaZe though in the beginning. I mean, somewhat worked. Yeah, top 2 for a long time. But
can I ask you guys, who would you put as the 5th? So now there's all these rumors between Exist and Olof, of course. But let's say that they could choose anyone. Who would you guys put as the 5th? Like, what do you think would be best to kill Astralis? Apart from Zipnix, I guess.
I think they need a good support player. So
Crims?
I don't know, like, if he's willing to do it, maybe someone like MBK. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe if they don't want a French player, then I guess like another support player like Rubino. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not really sure.
I think Crims would be really good. I mean, if they're going the support player route. Even if Olaf gets back.
It just seems like to me in FaZe they have like they don't have set roles. Like the expectations aren't like set within the team.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just seems like they all expect each other to do it instead of being like, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe that's a coaching thing. Maybe that's on Kerrigan. It's kind of hard to say. Like I feel like Kerrigan should just like pick one of the players and just say, you're going to be the bitch player and you're going to like it, you know?
I mean, good luck convincing Olof.
Yeah. That's the problem with having that many stars though, is that they all have egos. And so they're, you know, one of them isn't going to want to give that up. That's
he was the best player in the world. Of course he doesn't want to.
Yeah. And like that was almost like, that was why last time when we were talking about Cold being an IGL, I thought it would be really cool if you could pull it off, because, you know, completely changing your role like that is not easy. And that's like a huge accomplishment to be able to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Duncan.
All right, mate.
Duncan, have you seen, I just read an article on HLTV. I'm guessing we're done with this topic. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Go on.
Okay. Where they are becoming my most hated team in CS. Gambit is switching up their in-game lead
there we go.
once again.
Not even a meme. This is real.
going back to those, where they've like gone full circle now. Like they only need Mo to do it, and once again they're stuck with Seized, who's I don't know what's happened to him. Like he was like a top 2 support player back in 2016.
Sick, wasn't he?
He was just behind Crims. He was better than Sidnix for sure, and he was like the same as MBK. I think that's how I remember it. And now they're just stuck with him again, and I don't get why they don't understand what got them to win a major, which was have an in-game leader who doesn't frag at all, who's a shit fragger, and I got some kind of tactics, I guess, and like do a system instead of like trying to jump around the in-game leader role. They switched it up like 4 times in the last 6 months.
They're doing the Virtus Pro approach, where you just switch roles like every 6 months or whatever.
Well, the funny thing is, that is to some degree what they're doing. Like, first of all, one thing I'm actually a little bit concerned with their team about is, despite like there was a recent news that, you know, like they're getting some investment of like millions from some company or partnering with someone. Like, first of all, knowing the little I do about the financials in esports, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got money to spend on players there. Like, you know, you don't just take, it's not like you have to start a business like, oh, if you give me loads of money, well, what will you do with it? Just get all the best players. And if I win, I get like, you got to have a business plan, you know. So even in that case, that doesn't mean they've got money for buyouts. And the problem in Counter-Strike right now is if you don't have money for big buyouts, you're gambling. You're just having to go for people you don't know, you know, because obviously the buyouts, like, you're getting proven talent. So I think it's suspicious by now that if you think about it, nobody big name joins Gambit. Think about go backwards in time. So the most recent acquisition, totally broken down Seized, who didn't even look good in Flipside. So there's Seized, right? Go back before him. Fitch, complete unknown from Kazakhstan. No, obviously probably very cheap to get. Go back before him. You got I think it was Hobbit was just before Zeus. You got Hobbit, right? Hobbit again, unknown player. None of us knew him. Like, you vaguely, plausibly known. Obviously, Adren knew him. Go back before him. Zeus, player nobody wanted. Nobody cared a fuck about signing this guy. There was no bidding war to sign Zeus. Because think about it. Flipside's already got Blade. Angel's off in Hellraisers. And he's already just got kicked out of Na'Vi. Go back before that, and it's just the players joining from Hellraisers, basically. And in fact, the players before that were semi-unknowns. It was like that fucking Space guy from Russia, and it was fucking Waylander, who, I mean, you've seen what great things he's done in Flipside, right? You see what I mean? Gambit is not an org that has ever signed big players. What they did is they got some legendary players at their lowest point, or they started the org with not like literally the org, but, you know, the CSGO division anyway. So there's no track record to say that Gambit has money to buy players, if I can tell. So that's really worrying, because obviously you typically want the in-game leader to be a really established player, someone who's played a long, long time. And also then you've got to add in that since this core of players, people like Adren, Dossier, these guys have played together quite a long time now. Even Mo's played with them a decent amount of years. I actually get the feeling that they just, like, some pros do this when they don't have a clear way out or to get better. They just like lock into like a 9-to-5 job mode of like, right, well, you know what? It's like, not like I'm not going to try. You know, I'm going to turn up. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do the practice. I'm going to listen to all the tactics. I'm going to practice what I do in the game. In the game, I'm going to try my hardest. But it's very different when you play like that as a job, and when you sort of play either from passion because you really believe you can be the best, or from you know, actually trying to progress to somewhere. Because I don't really know how you get out of this prison. It seems like they are just stuck in the same cycle, because obviously no one wants to be the in-game leader. Who the fuck would want to do that role? Yeah, I can't even think who would even be suitable. Dossier obviously doesn't seem like he is. He is a human meme. That's not even. I told you, Dossier is one of those people that makes me start thinking like I live in a solipsistic universe where my mind controls the universe. Because I swear he wasn't even this bad back in the day. But the more memes they made, the more he became like a meme. Now it's like fucking who's gaslighting who? Do you think, like, I'd respect him if he came up and he was like, I was just fucking with you the whole time. I'll tell you a story. This is sort of out of bounds, so I'll keep it within bounds, the story. So there was a setting in which Dossier just came up to me within the last month or so, the last couple of months, and he was just screaming at me something like, and I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, we're all drinking, and I thought the whole time he's speaking in Russian, obviously, isn't he? So I get someone over who speaks Russian, and I say, ask him what the fuck he's saying. And the whole time he was just saying something in English to me. But it was like incomprehensible. And then, by the way, that Olafmeister story is true. He'll try talking to you in English when he's drunk. But if you ever try talking to him in English when he's just sober, he pretends he doesn't know English. and we'll even pretend he's never met you or talked to you before. He's your in-game leader. Sound.
I just, there's one thing, because you mentioned the name before. It's not going to be a topic, but I just thought it was funny that you had your talk to Thorin with Senyai, well, the Ukrainian, yeah, and you didn't address it, but he said that he thought that World Edit was over the hill and Flipside should like go put their eggs in the basket that's Markelov as an AWPer.
No, it was the other way around. It was the other way around.
Oh.
Yes, he thought Markelov was over the hill, that they should just stick with World Edit, I think.
You sure? I mean, no,
yeah, because he used to play with Markelov, remember? They were in Navi together.
Yeah. I was just so sure he said that Markelov, World Edit was over the hill. And Markelov.
No, I think it was the other way around as far as I can remember. Like, that's what was actually shocking about it, was you would expect him to be like, obviously, Markelov's my boy. We accomplished great things together. No, he can still do it. Like, believe in him, guys. Give him time. But, I mean, I could be wrong here, but from what I remember, I think it was the other way around. Because the problem is, if you think about the context is that they've done the opposite. In Flipside, they've told World Edit, probably the best player, like, you're the fucking support player now. And then they've told Markelov, like, cosplay yourself from 10 years ago. It's like, why would that work? You know? And the sad thing is, by the way, you've inadvertently brought up a good topic there, because the real reason why Markelov hasn't been an AWPer for all these years since he was in that Hellraisers team is basically because, as far as I know, he like never really vibed to a CSGO that much. And in fact, I think he has just mainly played it as a job. Now, I respect that in a way. Like, if you can really dedicate yourself and be like, you know what? Like, but bear in mind, he is from, like, not just Ukraine, but, like, I think one of the shit towns as well. Like, I would definitely play fucking Counter-Strike for a living compared to making $100 as a man working in a God knows where in Ukraine. That makes perfect sense to me. But you're not really going to be, like, super passionate about the game at that point in time, are you? You are really just going to turn up, do what they say, get the money, and then go home, which is part of the reason why I don't think it's a coincidence that those Flipside teams famously only ever did stuff at the majors and then did fuck all in between, pretty much, you know, except for the odd tournament here and there.
Yeah, if you see it from his point of view, I mean, he knows he's never going to be as good as he was back then.
Yeah, there's also that as well, right? Yeah.
So like, how are you going to be motivated to, if you play your absolute best, you're maybe a top 50 player in the world. And this guy was like owning everybody in 2009. He was
insane, yeah.
And he was so good compared to the rest.
Yeah. And that's also a problem in general, I have to say. Most competitors that I've met have a massive psychological block with that. It happened. So Quake's a great example, because obviously in Quake, we had many different versions of Quake. And it is almost a rule that whoever becomes the super dominant player in one version of Quake does their motherfucking best to avoid playing the next Quake iteration. Because guess what? They're probably not going to be the number one person. And they cannot, even though, think about it logically, right? If you were some godlike player like Toxic was, if you just put your effort in, you'd at least be like top 4, presumably, in the next Quake game. So you'd still make money, you'd still have chances to win, but it's something about them knowing that the dude who they were beating in all the finals in the last Quake will probably beat them. It just eats them up inside. They can't handle it, because let's face it, like 1v1 games especially are like mad about like you make your whole identity, how good you are at the game, you know, that's what all your ego is based on. And so some of them just can't handle. That's why I've always had insane respect for Cooler, because he could have basically just ridden off into the sunset and been like, oh, we'll never know if, you know, you would have been as good as I was in Quake 3. But it's like, no, he just kept playing all the Quake versions afterwards and wasn't number one and gave up that legacy in order to try and be number one. That's actually pretty fucking baller.
Yeah.
Yep. And then he became a low-tier pro in Overwatch.
He's back to Quake now, though. It's all right.
Oh, is he? I don't know.
Hey, listen, he won DreamHack Winter.
Oh, well, I don't really pay attention to Quake, so I don't really.
No, in Overwatch, he played for that.
Right, yeah.
A United team or whatever it was called, right?
But he was a Lucio player, though.
Yeah, he just won as a Lucio player. That was the thing that tore me up inside.
Just an IGL.
Is that he did an interview at the time he that Quake Champions came out, and someone said, "What is the most memorable moment in your career?" And he said, "Like winning that fucking Overwatch." And I was like trying to find the cyanide pills to fucking swallow them and get me out of this world, because obviously the simulation's gone wrong, and I need to get back to base level 0 or some shit on the loading screen and do it right next time. I need to go back to my saved game point and complete this level correctly.
But maybe it seems like he's just an outlier, you know. I've heard you mention it a couple of times. I think it was Bjergsen, whatever it's called, the League of Legends player, who said when he goes on vacation, he actually plays League of Legends because that's his idea.
That was Froggen. That was another Danish player, though. Yeah.
And I mean, there's just
Bjergsen's similar though. They all are also like that. Like they actually legit like the game. Like they don't even just play it as pros. You know, they're obsessed with it.
That's maybe how cool it feels. I mean, I guess because a lot of the guys who played Counter-Strike for a bunch of years don't love the game like they used to.
It's a sad thing, yeah.
It's hard to keep loving it, I guess.
The thing is, though, people don't realize it's the same with pro sports. Like supposedly one of the most depressing things about being like a professional footballer or basketball player is in every team. Remember, even if you're the best player, you don't pick your teammates. Like a general manager guy does that. And so unfortunately, every one of these teams, because you have so many players on a squad, has a few players who play just for their contract. They don't it's not that they don't care at all. People always go way too far another way, but they only sort of like half care. So for example, they'll practice this much and that'll make them decent at the game. They'll never go completely above and beyond. In fact, some of them will even say quite reasonably, I have a wife and family. I'm not going to spend 7 hours in the fucking gym after practice. I get it. That's totally reasonable. The problem is the very goal of trying to be the best is totally unreasonable goal, isn't it? It's like trying to be... This is one of the reasons why I actually get really pissed off at whenever feminists talk about the job market, because it'd be one thing if their idea of what they're mad about the job market is like low level, like unfairness between how much people get paid. No, they go all the way up the job market. And what they say is, look at these CEOs, they make too much. And besides, where are all the women? It's like, do you know what a CEO does? He basically just says, fuck everything about my life. I'm just going to try and win so hard at this job that's all that matters in my life. Like, you know, I will cancel every family holiday. I will take a call during my fucking grandma's funeral, whatever it takes. I will be the guy who beats you by all means necessary. Right? That guy in his own fucked up way, he should have all the money in the world, mate. He's doing everything it takes to get it. Why would he get it? Why would we share the money out? What the fuck is that?
And he's also, at some point, he's taking a massive gamble on his business, probably.
Like, and he's sort of ruining his life, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, you're right as well. He's also probably actually, this is a great example. He
didn't know he would get all that out of it that he got started when he started working 80 hours a week. He didn't know that it was in the end come to him being a top 100 CEO.
Absolutely, yeah.
Might as well fail after 5 years.
Yeah,
so it's a big fucking gamble.
No, but that's my point. Is that in that scenario, like, even if I knew I could do that, I wouldn't do that. Why the fuck would I give my whole life up to become like the best in business or something, right? It's a weird thing to be obsessed with. So while I respect it, obviously it's sick to watch some player who's so obsessed with the game they want to be the greatest ever. It is unreasonable to expect everyone else to do it though. Like a lot of these people are just... Like I always say this about pro players. I know we all want to worship them and think they're the best. Some of these cunts are just you or me with like 10% better aim.
Yeah.
It's like I've had times when some of these cunts are trying to talk shit to me in bars and I tell them, listen, mate, you wiggle your wrist slightly better than mine. We're talking here, motherfucker. If we're inside a server, wiggle your wrist at me and I'll be dead. In a real life conversation, you have to actually be able to have ideas, you daft cunt. Shut up. Go and sit down over there and have another beer.
But how do they respond to that?
Mate, here's the problem. It's words, isn't it? So even if they try to get off a couple of good lines, I always just go, well... Here's my response, and then they're like, "Shit," and they have nothing to go with. I'm like undefeated, mate. It's like if arguments in bars after pro players have had 2 drinks is like playing 1-on-1 in basketball. I'm like fucking Kobe Bryant. I'm like 700-0, never lost. Not least because I just don't give up. And so but I have to say though, there's some straight fighters come out of it. That's where I got Smiths to say that line to me one time that like. He's the best flashbanger in the world or something. And he was telling me how, like, go back, look at the demo from VeXii Games. every time I kill him, he is blind. And I'm like, we were all just laughing, like, what are you even talking about, you maniac? What the fuck are you on about right now? Like, and I was even obviously, like that, this is the other thing these people don't think about. Obviously, I've got banter as well, haven't I? It doesn't all have to be serious. So, like, when he was saying that, I was like, wait a minute, so you're even shitter then? Because you have that few kills and they're blind all the time, like... What? You must be absolute garbage, Smith. You'd be like, no, that's not what I meant. I meant I'm the best team player. Like, okay. Yeah, great.
Jeez.
But the key thing is, this is what people don't know. I never just go up to people and start BMing them. Like, they have to sort of invite this upon themselves. And then I'm like, are we doing this? Right, well, there we go then. Since you're now wasting my fucking time when it's my time off the event, when I've just finished working 14 hours, if you want me to destroy you, I will destroy you utterly and leave charred remains. Send for your next of kin.
Oh my god!
Luckily, it has led to a few fun scenarios, so it was all worth it in the end.
Indeed,
it was all worth it in the end.
We got to hear your French accent, which is always great.
Not bad, is it? It's one of the only ones I can do. That's the problem.
And those impressions.
Isn't your French accent every accent?
Well, that's just because if I can, I just try and do that one. Because I think, what's the point in doing a bad Russian accent when I can just do the French one and say, imagine this guy's Russian. I am Russian, what can I fucking tell you? It's like, why not? It's better, right? It works. It still works better than doing a shit Russian accent, doesn't it?
Oh, man.
I tell you what I do find fun, though, is that so many pro players and even some fans really buy into that argument that, like, you shouldn't make roster moves, you should just try and improve your team. And yet the same people are just like, oh, when's G2 going to pick up the new player? What do you mean? Why don't they just practice more? Like, what's the problem? What are the issues here? Just stick with it, you know. Why doesn't Flipside just practice more? Just get really good.
Why doesn't Verse Pro just get better?
Yeah, why not? Just try harder. The saddest thing is Virtus Pro is actually the ultimate example of the fact that practicing doesn't help you. Like, think about how many fucking non-stop cutting-edge smokes they have, like little tricks that they'll figure out in the game. Doesn't help them win a match. Doesn't mean fuck all, because guess what? You can't do tricks and smokes that just win you the game. You have to shoot people in the head eventually.
Do you think are we live, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think fans? I mean, I don't think fans don't want roster moves. They always run roster moves.
No, but the problem is the sort of fan who's followed the game for a while sometimes believes players and thinks, no, you just got to give them time to work it out. Whereas it's like, my whole philosophy on that's like that famous adage that you can't polish a turd. It's like if you figure out, 3 months in, like, this isn't a good lineup, like this SK lineup now, what's the point in wasting your time trying anymore? It's not going to just come together overnight, Most lineups that are good, you can tell within the first few lands, It's very rare that they all bomb the first few lands and then become amazing, I think usually you can tell. So, you know what? If you've got like sort of an 8 out of 10 team, yeah, give it a few more months, work with it. Maybe it could become a 10 out of 10 team. But if it starts off as a 5 out of 10 team, I don't think you're going anywhere with that squad, I feel like roster move's the only solution. Because again, you want to make a roster move that gets you to an initial 7 out of 10 level team.
Yeah, but their incentive as a team is, okay, I'm making all this money. Like you said, if I leave this, I'm done. So I won't say you should kick you. You won't say they should kick me, and we're fine as a team. So that's the problem. Like, how will VP? Yeah, they're just locked, especially after all this time.
Well, I mean, I don't blame players, by the way, because, like, think about it. What's mad about being players is we are literally co-workers who on some level are competing against each other because eventually someone's going to be kicked. So on the one hand, we're competing against each other. And on the other hand, to have any chance to win, we have to all try and be on the same page and care about each other's success and work for it and play for each other. So unsurprisingly, legendary players and teams like the ones we're talking about now, NIP, Virtus Pro, yeah, they're going to all believe that, like, we overcame problems in the past. We can do it again. Like, I remember when you were really good. I believe in you. Like, get your confidence back. Like, I get that. It all makes perfect sense. It's even quite logical, even based on their own experiences. It's just that as an outsider, you can sort of tell when someone's done. I mean, it's one of the weirdest things about Counter-Strike is people really do just become worse at the game. Like, you have people who had amazing skills in him and then 6 months later it's just gone. Now, no one knows the mystery why. If I knew, then obviously I'd have all sorts of solutions. So all I can do is just look at the current situation and go, odds are he's not coming back, is he? He's probably just done. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm like sort of on that topic, like why players get worse. I don't know. It seems like it's a lot of it is just like deterioration of like just straight up skill, like being able to flick and reaction speed, that sort of thing. And I have seen some studies that suggest that like IQ level is highly correlated with reaction speed, and IQ level will go up and down as you age. Like the peak level, and this makes sense for esports, but the peak level IQ for most people is around age 19 or 20, where like there's like two factors. I forget what they're called, but basically one of them is sort of more like crystallized intelligence or crystallized knowledge, and one of them is more like fluid. Right. And the fluid peaks out at like age 20, and then like the crystallized peaks out at like mid to late 20s. Right. And that patterns on to like the careers of a lot of esports players. I feel like most of them kind of peak mechanically, like, you know, the early 20s or so. I don't know. I feel like that is the reason why players get worse. It's just they get older, or that in like their IQ level will go down. Well, not really go down, but like the reaction speed doesn't stay as high when you're that much older. Like you can't rely on being like getting a crazy flick shot all the time.
Yeah, if you get older, you need other things, and maybe they were really good at the flick shot, but they are not good at reacting or outthinking the opponent or coming up with new ideas or leading other people. So yeah, and also there's skill inflation. In CS less of it, but in League of Legends and other games with metas, like in the beginning you could really get away with really being a bad player mechanically. Now you can't. Like you have to hit all CS and do all this other stuff. Whereas, if you're a good player initially and you didn't keep up, you just drop off. Like in League of Legends, most pros from season 2 and 3 did not keep up, and there's like 2 or 3 like double lift that stayed, but it's really rare.
There's also like a mad psychological like self-fulfilling prophecy though, which is that when players get older, they're the fuckers that start like, here's the thing, it's not that the world tells Taz, you're old now, you can't play. Like no one started doing that because we didn't have any 27-year-old pros. What happens is people like Taz themselves start using it as an excuse, like, oh, I'm old, my grandpa at this game. It's like, why are you telling me that? Like there's no logical reason why you couldn't be still really good at the game if it suited you. I mean, in this particular case, maybe CSGO just isn't his game, fair enough. But yeah, I've always found that a bit of a weird one, because I notice that the people who don't seem to get affected by the passage of time tend to be people who have an absurdly strong mental frame. So we're thinking of Forgiven, Double Lift. Like, I'm not joking. Forgiven has literally retired from League of Legends multiple times. Like, he has gone and not played League of Legends for 2 months, come back, and if the logic that, you have to be practicing all the time and everyone's skill improves, if that was true, it would not be possible for him to catch up back up again, and he always does.
But he's a massive outlier. He's really,
Yeah, because like I say, not only does he have skill, but that's the part that people wouldn't get. It's not just his skill level. Because I think someone like Reckless actually is a perfect example of where you can have all the skill in the world, but if your mental frame isn't the right one, you will never be the best player.
Yeah, I think Forgiven, maybe I'm mixing up players, but wasn't he the one that was also playing some other random game really casually, and he was already top of the ladder or something?
Almost every game he has ever played. Like in CSGO, he was global elite. In Heroes of the Storm, he was like rank 1. There was some other game he played recently. He also was at like the top level.
Yeah, he's just an outlier.
He's good at video games.
I don't really think there's different ways people are good at. I mean, some people just are like relying on grinding 80 hours over 2 weeks to stay good, and like people with the natural gift of the game, like Guardian and Forest, maybe can just play like 5 hours a week. And some of them, I mean, when they get older, they don't have like their priorities shift.
Yes.
So they don't have time to play 40 hours a week. So now they're just gradually getting worse all the time. So, I mean, I think that's a possibility too. That's like, some people are just naturally gifted at the game, and some people have to work really, really hard at it. And they don't when they get older. when they have won a lot of stuff, which makes sense to me, at least.
Just depends on your mentality, because obviously there's the weird guys where, like, I've told this story actually before about Cold Zero. What's mad is if you ever actually talk to that guy in like a private setting, he's like mad inspirational character, because he is actually like one of these fuckers where like they actually can sort of reset their brain every time they win, and they're equally motivated to try and win next time. Like there was a great story that like Kobe Bryant told about this exact phenomenon, where he said that like for people like him, when he won the championship, he for like a second he would feel like satisfaction, like wow, we did it, like fuck, we did. And then he said literally the next day it had completely gone, and all he thought was like, all my rivals are going to be practicing to win the next championship, so I've got to start now. So like basically, again, this is good. It's like tying back into what I said before. If you're this sort of person, you'll be amazing, but you'll never actually enjoy your life. Because if you can't even take like a week to enjoy that, like, what's the best case scenario is that you win, and every time you have to keep the next day. Oh well, back to work again. Like, you know, it's like the sad thing is, it's almost like a curse, isn't it? It's like you've cursed yourself. It's like, imagine if you went to some fucking bazaar in the middle of Arabia, right, in the 17th century, and you found, oh, this merchant, he's just about to close up his shop, and you go in and you say, oh, I'd like to buy your best item or whatever, and he's like, oh, sure, I could just sell you this rug here, and you're like, no, I want the best item, and you throw him this like super expensive gold coin, and he pulls out the cursed monkey paw, and he says, you get 5 wishes, but beware, don't use it, it's cursed. And I say, well, what's the curse? He says, your wishes always come true. And you go, and like, I don't need to know any more than that. You leave the place with the cursed monkey paw, and then you take the first finger, and obviously, like all these players do, you say, right, you know what? There's a lot of ways I could go with this, you know. So some people naively would say, I want to be the most skilled player ever. So they take that finger down, take it off. But you know what they don't think about? Yeah, they get to be the most skilled player ever. Nobody can stand to be around them. They'll never have a good team, never have teammates. They're so skilled that that's all that matters in their life. That's what makes them become the most skilled ever, they're the most selfish player ever. They'll never be able to win. So, okay, you might think to yourself, I'm ahead of the game. I'm going to do the right thing, right? I want to win, so fuck being the most skilled. I just want to be the best winner ever. Well, yeah, you know what? You get to be the best winner ever. You never get to enjoy 1 second of your life, because being the best winner ever involves sacrificing everything in your life to win. That's the reason why most people will never win or succeed, is because what happens is, no matter what you're trying to accomplish, usually there's something you have to sacrifice, which is like, I don't want to sacrifice that though. Like that's part of why I enjoy life, you know, it's like having that thing. But if you want it enough, you have to sacrifice it. So the problem is, ultimately, you're only doing it for the one thing, and it was just to win. It's kind of fucked up. I wouldn't really want to do it personally. I try to veer away from that when I can.
Yep. I mean, you got to have some sort of balance in your life, you know? It's not all about, you know, just one thing.
No, but you can just, for all your professional career, you can just try to win, and afterwards you can just play golf or whatever you enjoy.
You say that, but
only have that window, you know.
I agree on one level, but here's the problem. I know a lot of people, as in not like personally, but I know of a lot of people who were hyper competitive, and they tried to retire and their life was ruined. Like when they retired, they were like, first of all, I think the most overrated concept in the world is like, oh, I'm retiring so I can spend time with my family. Are you out of your motherfucking mind? You're going to spend 12 hours around your family. They don't want to spend 12 hours around you. What's awesome about having a family is coming back and having like 2 or 3 hours. Have you ever tried this? Have you ever tried going back home to your parents after you've moved out? You know what? First 2 days are awesome. You're sleeping in your bed, there's your mom. About 3 or 4 days in, it becomes like normal life again. And you're like, holy fuck, when am I going? What is this shit? I don't want to know more about that television show you're watching. Oh, what's that? I've forgotten. You're not my friend. You're just my family. I'm out of here. See you in 2 months. You know, it gets old real fast, doesn't it? Like, that's why the dumbest concept ever is the idea that, like, if we're all really good, you get to go to heaven and spend time with your family for eternity. Are you out your motherfucking mind? I want them to die before me. And when I die, I don't want my kids to have to fucking pop up to heaven. Oh, well, here's all the thoughts I've been having about your life. Fucking hell. Sounds like a nightmare, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's a, I don't know, I remember seeing some like stories or like studies or something about how people after they retire, they like die immediately, basically after they retire, or people that are really workaholic types.
Well, here's the example I would give. Right, is I know loads of people whose grandmothers, because I come from like a fairly like poor area in the northeast of England. I know loads of people where when I was a kid, I thought that people who were 60 were really old. And I don't mean just because I was a kid, because I knew so many like old grandmas who were like 65. And I'm not joking, like they could barely like string it like sentences together. Like they already seemed as though they had like dementia and they were like so close to dying. Well, what's mad is, do you know how old fucking like Noam Chomsky is? That guy's like, I think he's like 80 years old or something. Have you ever seen that guy? He can do like a full interview lecture off the top of his head, like insane depth on all the shit he's done, because he never let any of it go. He kept it all active and he's kept himself inspired and keeping going. So as a result, that guy's going to like be one of those people. This happens to intellectuals, if you notice, who they die like a year after they were like doing talks and interviews and books and stuff. But the problem is the people who like retire in the traditional sense and they just sit around the house all day and just drink tea and don't think about much and just go for short walks. Yeah, they end up, there's just nothing between their ears in about 5 years, isn't it? It's gone completely. So they could have had actually like a solid maybe 10, 15 years more. I say as an entirely uninformed non-doctor who's just made all these conclusions and observations from a Noam Chomsky interview I saw and my own life in the northeast of England. Right, there's the asterisk at the end. So don't blame me if you get to 60 and you're like, nice, Thorin said I got 50 more years. And the doctor's like, I'm sorry, you have vicious ass cancer and you will be dead in 1 year. Like, no, bro, what about the 15 years? I was waiting for this. I don't have any sort of a return policy, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
In fact, the doctor's like, listen, about the only good news I've got is we've never seen ass cancer this vicious. So your reamed out corpse will be, if you donate it to science, you might be able to help the world. Because this shit's taken over you like the alien motherfucker. So unreal, isn't it? Anyway, any other topics?
I had one. Yeah.
Come on.
On the MVP, so you had some videos about MVPs in the past, but now there's some new things happening, like the winner of the tournament does not necessarily get the MVP, or here now, like Lupri got it over the Vice. Did you have any thoughts on are you thinking about the MVPs? Do you think they can actually help, bring the narratives to make the game, to have more stories to people latch on? Like, how are you thinking about this?
My biggest problem, because you're talking about HLTV MVPs here,
yeah.
My biggest problem with the HLTV.org MVPs is that they are explicitly based on stats. And the reason why, people think I'm always strawmanning this when I bring it up, because what happens is most people don't think this way. So they're like, why are you acting like we're all going off stats? No. People like, so in the past when Lurpus used to work there, he used to think quite similarly. People like Lurpus and the game will restart in 1 second, that guy Peter, they literally believe that stats tell you roughly how good a player played. Now they don't claim it, it tells you perfectly, but as in, if you were to ask them, I'm not exaggerating, if a player that had like a 1.39 rating performed better over a tournament than a player with a 1.35, they would tell you, like, barring, like the odd occasion, yes, they did. They would tell that. So because they believe that, they then base their judgments on MVPs on these factors. So I'll tell you a detail that I found out recently that, as far as I know, is accurate. I mean, I haven't fully confirmed it, but I asked someone who was able to corroborate it. Apparently, when they decide the HLTV.org MVP award, one of the factors they weight heavily is how well you performed in wins rather than all the games.
Yeah.
So if you play a series and you get utterly shit on the map that you lose, no biggie, mate. Just go ham on the map you win. Right, that, if you're someone who understands the traditional concept of an MVP, that is cancer. Because actually, some of the greatest players of all time who had amazing games and losses, they're getting discounted. That's getting put to one side. Why? Surely MVP is just most valuable player. It never said most valuable player that helped you win the maps. Like, what's this weird caveat that's getting put in? Then you add in the stats thing. Yeah, that's just too much for me, because for a start off, the stats part never made sense to me because we're not all playing the same opponents at the same time. So It's not a uniform thing. It never made, like, why would your number, unless we're on the same team, and even then we play different roles, why would your number being higher mean you played better, right? If you got to play Greyhound in the first round and I had to play fucking Optic in the first round, wonder who got the harder match there. What? And you get bonus points for those kills, dear. The whole thing's mental. And obviously one of the ones that triggers me to oblivion is overrating the performance in the final. Like, yeah, I would put performance in the final one of the higher values. But for example, this is the best way to frame this is that what happened in the E-League Major where Astralis won. So Astralis won and Kirby got the MVP, right? Mainly because he was better in the final. Now, here's the problem with that logic. Of course, he's the most valuable player, Thorin. Without him, they wouldn't have won the championship. Oh, cool. I'll apply the same logic. There would have been no final for Kirby to carry if Device hadn't carried the whole fucking tournament. Therefore, Kirby has no final to carry. Therefore, he can't be the MVP. There you go. I've used your own logic to prove that he can't be the MVP. So you've got to come up with new logic there.
Yeah. Same thing happened with Cloud9, right? They gave Skadoodle the MVP when they won the major. Yeah. And it was pretty obvious that they should have given it to Tarek, I guess.
Well, here's the sick thing about that one for me. Is like, I could see a logic of giving it to Cloud9 players because they did have a very hard route. But the weirdest thing about that one is that's a perfect example of how flawed MVP logic is, right? So you're telling me if FaZe wins one more round, you're no longer giving the MVP to any Cloud9 player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. So basically, maybe 2 kills. Maybe 2 kills not even involving any of the candidates we would have picked as MVP. Decide who was the MVP. So one guy dying or living makes you, in totally unrelated player, more valuable. I'll never understand this logic. That's why it doesn't make sense to pretend it's based on stats. Like, it's not. First of all, it's opinion. Let's be real. You just have a feel for who you think's better. You get a few opinions. So you get a few, I think for this reason, this reason. Now, beyond that, if you can add a stat, it's probably cool. You know, hey, well, I actually thought this guy was the most dominant in how he took over the T side. Oh, look, and he's got the best entry usage rate. Okay, that's cool, like supplementary detail. But I think it's a very complicated area that everyone pretends like they know the answer to. Like, they pretend like we all agreed it 10 years ago how MVP should be judged. And as far as I can tell, we all have different criteria.
Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like that argument that people, or that apparently HLTV people make, that like they only take into account the stats that you get in wins. It seems
it's
like
not that they only, it's that they more heavily weight
towards
those ones. Whereas I don't see what the difference would be.
Yeah, it seems like that would way heavily skew the MVP towards inconsistent players, like people that are extremely good in wins and extremely bad in losses. Like, that doesn't seem like a good system to me. Like, the best players are always the consistently good players. Like, you know, Simple isn't like a 2.0 rating some maps and then like a 0 some maps. But in that system, he would have an advantage over somebody who's like a, 1.5 rating consistently. That's pretty dumb to me.
I don't think that's how it works though, but I get where you're saying.
I mean, that's kind of an exaggeration, but I don't know.
I want to, if I can go back to what you said, Thorin, before, about one round changing whether you give the MVP to one player to another. I just want to try to do like the media, or like a journalist, the media, they also like paint they shift the narrative from a player's what's it called? Sorry, their legacies based on like one round won or lost.
For sure, yeah.
I mean, I can't stand it. It's so annoying. Like one in basketball, one layup where you have like a 70% chance of winning it. Yeah. It just from being 3-5 to 4-4 in the finals, and it shifts your whole narrative on your legacy.
Yes,
it just makes no sense to me.
No, I mean, that's actually something that, by the way, part of the problem with a lot of these topics is if you notice them, a lot of them, like, first of all, you have to usually watch something for a long time to kind of figure out inconsistencies in your own logic, Like, for example, I probably, when I first started watching sports or esports, I probably thought that the person who won the most championships had to be the best player, It's just it's a decent initial thing to think. But what happens is over the time, what you get little breadcrumbs, like you'll find a player that's godlike who's on a team that could never win, and you go, wait a minute, come on, he's amazing. Like, why is he not winning? And you follow these breadcrumbs up. You try to hopefully come up with principles that are universal and apply them. Because I agree. I nowadays try to battle against that. So, for example, the best example at the moment is exactly that final of Cloud9 phase. Because, is there anyone who thinks that if they win one extra round, that makes Guardian some ultra legend of the game, best player ever? But if he loses that round, sorry, mate, you're not quite there yet. What the fuck are you on about? He didn't do anything wrong. He did the same shit that he would have done if you'd won the game, if you lost the game. So, Skadoodle won that major. Guess what? Skadoodle can't even fucking lick Guardian's boots. Guardian doesn't have any majors. I think it's the same as sports, though. People are probably aware of this, but I'm a massive fan of Charles Barkley, for example. I think people don't realise how insanely good that is. I'll give you a more modern example. It's someone who did win one championship, but will never get the same credit. So, if you ask a pleb fan of the NBA, they'll tell you that Tim Duncan's much better than Kevin Garnett. Are you fucking shitting me? Kevin Garnett was unbelievable. That's a very close debate as to who's better. I know one of them has loads more championships. Guess what? The other one didn't play with a godlike GM and Greg Popovich as his coach, and that's a super razor thin argument. I think who was better out of those two players? They were both fantastic and both similar skill set. Even super good on defense, good on offense, great team leader, I think that you could go all over on that debate. But if you asked an NBA fan, they wouldn't even have that debate because one of them's got 5 championships, the other one has 1.
Yep.
It sounds a lot like. It sounds a lot like the Jordan versus LeBron debate, but yeah.
Well, the good thing about the Jordan versus LeBron debate is people don't understand that none of them are having the same debate. In reality, almost everyone who's it has to be Michael Jordan. They don't realize that that's literally what they mean. Your name has to be Michael Jordan, and you have to have won 6 exact championships, and you have to have hit that game winner over Brian Russell while pushing off in the final against you. If you don't do all that, they'll just say you can't be the best because you didn't do that. It's what's this discussion anymore? I would always ask this, right? What would allow you to be better than Michael Jordan? And if they can't answer that question, they're not fit to be in the debate, And anyone who says you have to win exactly the amount of MVPs and championships, it's shut the fuck up, mate. That's obviously not plausible, is it? Come on.
Yeah, it seems like everybody just wants to, in order to be, even be in the stratosphere of comparison, you have to have won 7 championships. That's the only way.
What's funny is, I'll give you a great example. I should really do an article on this one day because, I think I did a video on it actually. This actually happened. What happened is, in Korean Starcraft, in Starcraft 1, the one that they had for they played it for 12 years or something. And the good thing was, for most of those 12 years, it was about the most competitive scene Esports has ever seen because every player was salaried, lived in a team house with 12 other players, was practicing literally a mandated 12 hours a day, would compete in lots of different competitions. And so you got to see sort of the limits of what they could accomplish in this game. And it meant that whoever the best players were, generally, they got a full chance to show it. And what happened was, when players came up, like Jaedong and Flash, towards the latter half of the game, and they, in terms of championships, were already at the level that some of the all-time, the players then considered to be the best ever were at, people started to have the discussion you'd expect, which is, right, can these guys be the best player ever, or are they comparable to those old players? And what happened was they had this famous term called bonjour, which meant you were the dominant player of your era and no one could touch you. And what happened was nobody in the modern day, no matter how many championships, was ever allowed to be called a bonjour, because what they did was they took all the past bonjour players and they said, but you didn't do what the first player did. And it's okay, but you didn't do what the second player did. Okay, I didn't do that either. And what you didn't realize was none of those players did what each other did. So one of them, for example, was really had longevity. So, okay, the other one won all his championships in a year and a half. That's pretty insane. Another one was never defeated in the final. Okay. Then another one was dominant with the worst race and did it. So it's even though each of them only had the one area they were a god in and got this title from, any new person had to somehow match all of their accomplishments at once. It was so unfair, it was unreal. But what was good was hearing people explain that didn't really help with the debate, but it made you realize how their brains were categorizing the information. And so they were just making it impossible to ever match the levels of their idols because they were in some mad nostalgic trap, So, I have to say, with all of that said, I don't think LeBron's the best player ever. But I don't think it's ridiculous to have a discussion. I think you could definitely put it some other way. And if you had some other criteria, I wouldn't blame you if you said he was.
He's inching closer every year.
I mean, put it this way: if you just wanted to go with the angle of this, okay, let's say you change the debate, like what makes the best basketball player. I mean, at the moment, if we're going on Michael Jordan, we're basically saying how skilled you were and how much you could like dominate a game. But if you wanted to say in the most pure sense, I mean, basketball is a sport it's a team game. It's about making your teammates better as well. If you had to make your teammates better, LeBron might be the best player ever. Wouldn't be unreasonable, I don't think.
Yeah, would not be unreasonable at all. He's very good.
It's pretty fucking good, isn't he? Yeah.
He's pretty.
I mean, I think he's had some fucking terrible teammates over the years. I know in the last few years he's had some pretty good teams, but some of those first teams he had in Cleveland were fucking garbage.
Yeah.
Like those GMs should not just be fired. They should literally like the fucking US government should burn their birth certificate and driver's license and drive them out into the wilderness. Like that's how bad these guys are and what they've done. They're fucking. It should pass on to their children for 7 generations in some biblical fashion for the crimes against basketball they've committed.
Yeah. I'm sure Nets fans would like to do that to Billy King. He completely screwed over that franchise. God damn. He was the guy who did the Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce trade to the Nets. That was
right, yes. Yeah.
That was a very bad trade.
Yeah.
I think we can say that safely now. So
back to the HLTV medals.
Yes.
Did you see what Major or what it was called from Spatial just tweeted about the HLTV medals?
No, I think he's got me blocked, mate. So I can't see any of these things. I can't say I'm missing anything. So I just live my life and doing this for me. But what did he say?
I'm just gonna find if you haven't seen that. He said that you should. Oh, I can't find. He basically just said that instead of giving it to the best player, you should think about giving it to the coach or the manager of the team. I'm pretty sure.
Here's a crazy thing. You know what's genius about that? Here's what's genius about that, right? Is that we can have a debate all day long about who the best player was. Was it Device? Was it Glaive? Was it Dupree? Was it Simple? Was it, we can go all over the place. But if there's one thing we can all agree upon, a player award should probably go to a player. So congrats to Major for coming up with, by definition, the stupidest argument ever for a player award. That's like saying, who should Employee of the Month go to? Someone who doesn't work at our company? I don't know, you daft cunt.
I'll just read it.
Come on.
Stop giving MVP individual awards. It's only my point of view. Better idea? ? Give it to the coach/manager. I'm sure a lot of coach/manager have a big role in a success team.
That's what Riot did.
What he's doing there is, by the way, if you don't follow League of Legends, this is hilarious. But what happened was there was a team in Europe in 2015 and they went undefeated in the split. They won all 18 games. And so each week they used to have an MVP of the week, right? Like best player this week. And because they'd given it to a whole bunch of the Fnatic players, for the last week they gave the MVP award to the coach. Even though, again, don't want to be a stickler or anything. I don't want to seem like a grammar out, but it is an award for players and he did not play in the game. So when they did that, obviously Riot then became an eternal meme that I've never taken seriously for 1 second ever since. Also, the dumb thing about that is, right, I could translate that tweet for you. What he really means there is coaches and managers don't get enough credit and they play some role in it. Now, obviously, it's been interpreted through his brain, which isn't exactly the most high-powered functioning Lamborghini of a mind. So it's come out as, some people, in his brain, he's gone, wait a minute, some people don't appreciate that these people do something. They do everything. Give them all of the awards. It's the same mentality reversed, you fucking moron, isn't it? Come on. What? Imagine that as well. Here's the thing. You know what? I feel like we should stop criticising him and just have a Black Mirror episode where this happens. So like the players just play their hearts out. Amazing game. Like fucking Magisk has gone off. He's having an amazing match. Glaive's just fragging at a level no in-game leaders ever reached. They win the trophy finally. And the MVP goes to Zonic. And everyone's like, what? What?
Or simple win like, the thing alone.
And then also, listen, remember, it's HLTV.org, so they're going to have to be consistent. They're going to have to track how many hugs he gives them, how many high fives. Yeah. You give them water at exactly 3 minutes 54, at which point they got 7 kills. That translates to a water to kill carry ratio of 7.4 over 4.5 and the prime number of 1. Therefore, you win.
Yeah. That's they should base the MVP award on the amount of times they showed up on camera, like yelling at the guy, like encouraging the guy who won them the round.
That tweet from Major is about on par with me if I just replied to him like, really? That's what you think about Counter-Strike's about? How about giving the MVP to the moms? Without the moms, none of us would be here, would they? Without all their hugs and kids. Like, shut the fuck up, Major. What are you talking about?
They're the real MVP, right?
Exactly. That's the like logic this guy's operating on, isn't it? And then, oh, you know what? You know who my MVP is? God. Without him, I wouldn't even be here with Abro. All things are possible through him. I love it when professional athletes do that, by the way, because you know what my actual theory for why they do that is? What they do is even they don't want to be seen as arrogant and narcissistic. So what you do is you make God like a sort of abstraction to just congratulate yourself, because you're like, you know what I just did in that ring right there, what, just boxing, but just you're just really good at it. No, I just did something so special. God himself had to enter into the corporeal realm, because no one could possibly, throw punches like I just did. God himself had to enter into it and no, not feed starving African children, like invent some sort of thing. No, he just came into the universe and he exhibited a supernatural act to make me a little bit faster at punching you in your jaw, because no one else could have done it. You don't understand. I'm so good. I'm basically God's vessel on this planet. Now, I'm not narcissistic, because as I say, I didn't do that. All credit to God. In square brackets, which is me, because it was definitely me and only I did it. But yeah, anyway, can we all just congratulate God on his victory? Because that's what I like. Come on, man. Come on, homie. Is that you? Is that just you? Is that your code name?
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah. Also, I just love the way there's no consistency, is there? So every time they win, all things are possible through him. When they lose, why aren't they like, fuck you? I did everything you asked of me, you piece of shit. I thought everything was possible. Why have you forsaken, Lord? Why have you forsaken me? It's like, why are they screaming that in the middle of the ring? Why God? And then why don't they just like after the match, because they lost, they just convert to full Satanism, like, fuck you, I'll turn to the devil instead. Satan, give me power. Also, by the way, I'd love it, because actually nowadays there are people who are like proper Satanists. I'd love it if some guy won like the World Championship belt in UFC and he was like, it was all thanks to the devil. It's like flicking his tongue out. It
could be like
that'd be so good, wouldn't it?
It could be like that there's that video of like some like Swedish black metal was it Gorgoroth or whatever, the like lead singer. He like is in an interview and this guy's asking him like, what's your inspiration? What makes you make this music? And he's holding like a glass of wine like this, and he's literally just sits there for like a solid like 15 seconds, and he just sips the wine and goes, Satan. Like, what the fuck?
Everyone's got to have their inspirations, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's the thing. A little
classic
piece of trivia, actually. One of the ways I thought up my acceptance speech for that Esports Journalist of the Year award is I remember one of my favourite stories is that when Carmelo Anthony won like College Player of the Year or something, he actually did just like thank himself for doing loads of hard work, which is like, that's a straight fucking baller, isn't it? It's like, you know what? Again, just like Major, yeah, you know what? Your coach did help you and your teammates did help you, but you also did all the fucking work. Like, let's be real. Like, you should be thanking yourself.
Yep.
Or if you'd gone really baller, the other way to do it would be like, I'd like to thank Stacey, who wouldn't fuck me that one time at the bar, and Barry, who like didn't help me steal that car when I was a kid, so I stayed out of prison. Like, that's what we'd be straight about if you start thanking all those people, the real heroes, the real MVPs of HLTV.org. And shout out to Major for making an even stupider angle. I was already criticising HLTV.org. He made them look practically reasonable. I mean, they're giving it to people who actually play Counter-Strike.
Maybe he should get an award for that.
This guy like wants the MVP of IEM to be like the fucking guy at Intel who like signed the contract to give all the millions so IEM could exist. Like, and bring up Mr. Intel again. You've won for the 7th year in a row. It's like so stupid, isn't it? Why is it so stupid? It's unreasonable as fuck. And all I'm going to tell you is this. There's people who want him to be the in-game leader of G2. I want this guy away from all decisions and moments to talk possible.
There's multiple people who want that.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I don't know on what basis, but whatever. Good luck to him. Good luck to all of them. Nothing you can do now, boys. You can't stop it. Lord Existence is coming back. He's going to have his team. He's got Shoxy with him. He's got Kenny S.
They're getting Body as the last one. The guy, the French guy,
today, right?
No, it's just basically the same as announcement, which is a report from that nil guy.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same.
I don't know. What do you think of that team?
Dude, I'm so amazed how little the hype is around that. Why?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Like, surely you're at least excited to see what could happen,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people are just used to being disappointed with French CS the past couple of years.
No, but that's the sick thing. Think about it. We haven't seen a tactical in-game leader have Shox or Kenny S for years now.
Yeah.
And he's going to have them both at the same time.
Maybe it's been too long and people aren't from that time and they don't remember.
That's also it as well, I have to say, yeah. The problem you always have to realise, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier about like people whose whole identity is based on the fact that they haven't been around long enough, so they have to pretend they've been around even longer. You can always tell the people who didn't follow a certain year of CS because they always like dismiss it. So for example, people tell me all the time that Existence has never won anything. You do know, if you go back to like the first year and a half of Counter-Strike, he would be like top 5 most trophies in the game or something mad like that, like won fuck tons. But they don't know that because they weren't there. And like half of them, my favourite one ever is, most fans think that Nip's 87-0 was like a year long or 2 years long or something. Like that was the first like 8 months or something. Yeah. It was like, I think it was 11 tournaments. So it ended in April of 2013. So all the shit since then, like, they only, like, some of them think that, like, they did. I swear, some fans, because they've, like, haven't looked in a hit, they think, like, Nip went 87-0, lost one game, kicked fifth Laren, yada, 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 and then SK is now the best team ever. Like, what? There was a lot in between that,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, go on. I didn't really have a point.
It was just to go back to what you said about why we're not more excited, because maybe it's because they're taking Smith out of retirement, who was absolutely terrible. Yeah. And I mean, Existence, I'm looking forward to seeing it, but the only reason I am is because you've like talked him into relevancy. I think, like, I feel like without you, he would be dead and gone for a long time ago, I think.
Listen, mate, I make shit happen. What can I tell you? All you need to know is young Shoxy over there, he is but my vessel on this earth. Through me, all things are possible.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? That team's actually happening. That is like my wet dream, that those 3 players in one team.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then obviously the cursed monkey paw. All I want is Existence, Kenny S and Shox to play together. It would be so good. No, wait. I meant to say the last 2 players, the finger's already crunched up. You will have your wish. And they will play with Smiths. I mean, he was pretty good back in the day. 2018, Smith. No! Why? What? Well, do they at least get NBK? No, they ostracize NBK and he leaves the French scene. Oh my God, why have I done this? Why? No. But then at the end, I just sit down and I go, wait a minute though, what were our options? Happy? Yeah, fuck it, just stick with that then, won't I? All right, Chris Monkey Paw, you win this one, mate. Let's go.
It's gonna be fun to watch those 2 players like hard carry. So they're gonna have to hard carry if they want to do anything.
Could happen,
that's
though,
good.
right? It's not impossible.
Like we talked about in the last episode, we talked about like you don't want to see Simple in another team. You actually love to see him when he has to hard carry, and that's gonna be fun.
Exactly. That's also in a weird way why it's cool, because actually, it's not certain that this lineup on paper should be awesome, but it could be. Could also be bad, sure. I absolutely agree, but it's one of the rare times I've ever seen a roster put together that I didn't really have like a super strong feeling either way as to which way it'll go. I think it's really hard to know.
Yeah.
That's probably how it will go. It will just be a solid top 7 team going out in some semifinals sometimes, maybe.
That's enough for me, mate. As long as I can hype them.
You're gonna hype them. I know you are.
Yeah, why not?
You can always bring back NBK or Apex. Like, it's not...
That's also the other detail that people aren't thinking about here. Is that, okay, they're going to start the team with Body and Smiths.
Yeah.
But by the way, one of the good things about someone like Existence is, if someone isn't doing their job and they're shit in 6 months, and he knows he could get MBK, like maybe at that point in time, MBK does want to be in the team because he's been sat on his arse or he's been playing some shit team, then you'll see the move. That'll be like the proper move that you want. So that's also the other thing. Basically, as long as it's kind of like the Overwatch League, it doesn't have to succeed straight out the gate. It just has to not fail too hard and then survive to the next point where it can not fail too hard and get a little bump up and then survive. It's like you can sort of make it that way too, Obviously, you want to just succeed right out of the gate, but it's not always possible.
I just don't get why they don't get Apex instead of Body. I mean, I know what you're going to say. It's some fringe politics, but I mean, it just makes so much sense to get him instead. It makes all the sense.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a bit of a shame they have to go through Body first. I mean, he's been this when he joined G2 back like 1.5 years ago. He looked really promising and good, but since then he's. I mean, I don't know what happened to him.
Well, the thing is, though, this was actually part of what Shox said is his philosophy, which did have a logic to it, which is that what he did was when Shox was the in-game leader of this team, he felt like some players either gave feedback but were like hostile or others. So I think he actually said this was like Kenny S and Apex fell into this role, would just follow us. Like they just did whoever the leaders were said. And they didn't really have an opinion. And they wouldn't give you feedback. And they just basically, the problem is they're just soldiers. They just do whatever you say. Now, I think that was the way he said it. And so I believe the concept for this team that he wanted now was like, because he's bringing Existence back, it's like everyone has to somehow like follow Existence. I'm not sure actually in that sense why Apex didn't fit into it. Maybe I assume it's something like Apex didn't want to do the team with Shox, and so he's out for that reason. I think that might be the rationale that was given.
Politics yet again.
It is, but again, it's also not the end for him either. Because, for example, say they bring him in a year if they want him, that's also doable.
It's still too bad. I mean, we have to wait for it. I enjoy watching him play. Like he's got something.
Well, I mean, if there weren't morons over in Envious, you could have another good team, couldn't you? It'd be fucking sick as well. Imagine that team with those players in. You'd have a great rivalry even.
Yeah, it's gonna be led by Happy. So.
Well, that's the rumor. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're going to kick him finally. Maybe they're going to do the coup d'etat. They're all going to stab him in his back.
I almost wonder if...
It's a sick expression, yeah.
I almost wonder if G2's plan is just to wait for Envious to like disband and then just pick up the pieces from there.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Hastro's obviously like that, that like scornful lover who comes and murders you and your new girlfriend because they're like, if I can't have him, nobody will. Like that's what Hastro's trying to do with all of his players in his Envious team. Like, I'll run these motherfuckers into the ground before I ever let you have them. And then he's like, come on, guys, we're going on a field trip. Just locks the van doors. No, we're going towards a cliff. It's all right. The boys in blue will make it. Just rides off the edge of the cliff. Thelma and Louise style. That was
reference game on point, right?
Sad thing is, I'm pretty sure Astro hates me. And I haven't even said shit about him. It's all Richard. But as usual, just because I sat there like laughing and nodding sometimes, I'm fucking in trouble as well. And I didn't even say shit. Same way when he was wrecking the guy from Splice. Like I actually worked with that guy for a little while, so I don't mind him that much. But I'm not gonna lie, it's funny calling him like Marty Laser Lips or whatever. Like, it's fucking hilarious, isn't it? Like, of course it is. That's fucking banter, isn't it? Who doesn't like that? I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Laser Lips.
I mean, it's unreasonable, obviously. We all know that.
Well,
What's your opinion of Scream? Do you think he can come back and join one of these top ones, or do you think he's, now, I don't know, lost motivation or?
His problem is he's one of those people where, like that, it's really hard to describe because I don't think he lost his skill. Like you still see it sometimes. He can still do all that shit. But he is one of those people who is like he's not a cerebral player, put it that way. So he's like massively driven on like his own perception of how good he is and what role he should play and all that sort of shit. So the problem is, obviously he would in a heartbeat jump and join a team like this, but too many of the players in that team have sort of like given up on him, sort of, That's another thing they do in the French scene. Obviously they did this to existence. Like when they give up on you, they just won't revisit the idea even. It's like you're just dead and buried and they just know that you can never be good again and they're past it basically.
Yeah.
So when is that going to happen for Happy?
It's already happened.
Yeah.
The only reason Happy's around now is because of two factors. One, Hastro, and two, people forget this one because this is one of the aspects that a lot of people don't realize is that when the last French shuffle happened, it wasn't supposed to be these teams. It was supposed to be the G2 lineup, and then Envious was going to be a super team of like Happy, Existence, RPK, Scream, and someone else. I can't remember who the fifth one was. So, but what happened was they even came to Existence and made this deal to him, and Existence was like, I don't want to be in a team with you guys, because the whole point was Existence saw like, well, we're just going to be like a good second French team. Whereas like if I'm going to keep playing, I want to either be in the best French team, which he didn't have an option for, or naively he thought better to just start with players who've never been corrupted by all you guys and your work ethic and problems, and hope I can like mold them into really good players. Now, what he didn't realize was like you can't just take tier 3 players and turn them into the best team. It doesn't matter how much you coach them and do it. So yes, that was a naive concept in its own self, but I kind of can agree with him that just being in like a good but not the best French team, like that's also kind of pointless in its own way, Especially if you played as long as that guy has. Like he's not doing it just to come top 8 at a LAN one time.
But he gotta. I mean, you just gotta ask yourself, what's my biggest chance of winning a championship within 1.5 years? Is it with LDLC, a mix of UK players, or is it Envious with some maybe not so motivated, semi-washed up French players or whatever you want to call them? I mean, I'll still go with the washed up French players over.
Yeah, but that's also the problem is to him, it's like he wouldn't even have fun with the better results though, because if he's in a team with Happy and Scream, and these guys aren't going to do what he wants, and their mindset's so different for the game, it's not going to be fun. Like, I can actually get it, right? Believe it or not, I've had this scenario myself, because I used to be an in-game leader most of the time when I played. I actually preferred to have players who weren't that good, but just understood what we were trying to do and followed the strat and were good team players. Even though we wouldn't win often, I preferred that over, oftentimes, I'd bring a guy in and for the first 3 weeks, I'd be like, fucking hell, this guy's skilled actually. But then like, when you actually try to buckle down, they just refuse to learn the strats, or even worse, they disagree with your style of play, or they win, but then they're like got a bad attitude. Like, I would always just end up being like, you know what, even if we're not going to win, I'd fucking kick these guys. I'd rather have fun and play the way we want to play, basically,
I just thought that mentality shifted when you got to the top. I mean, for you, it didn't matter if you're like tier 60 or tier 61, but it seems to matter a little bit more if you're tier 2 or tier 4.
Yeah, but the problem here is, it's the same concept you're saying now, though, is if you have been, forget tier, you have been the best team in the world. And in the case of Existence, he's done it multiple times across a bunch of different games. In that world, to him, the difference between being the 9th best team and being in the 19th best team actually isn't that big a deal. Like, if you've been to number 1, the difference between number 3 and number 1 is bigger than fucking 9 and 19, if you get my point.
Yeah. I mean, still, in CS, you want to stay relevant at some point.
Yeah, sure. I get it. But here, put it this way.
Yes, a lot of... No, never mind, go.
Yeah, sorry. This is one of the reasons, by the way, why I often don't have a lot of faith in NA players, because I know so many NA pro players, even to this day, who if they get to the final and they get thrashed in the final, dude, they loving it in the bar afterwards. They're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, we lost, but, you know, we'll get another chance. Like, hey, we did such a great tournament, didn't you? Meanwhile, you go and meet, like, fucking, I'm not joking, like, Olaf Meister or any of the really great players after they've lost a final, you would think they came last place. That's like the attitude difference, you know. They're not like, haha, cool, oh, great job or whatever. Like I think I've told this story before. When that TSM team, the Astralis core, first got really good, and if you remember the first 3 tournaments they won, they beat Fnatic in like 2 of them, right? When they beat Fnatic the second time, I thought, right, well, logically, you know, Fnatic must get that this team has, you know, is very good and they have maybe like an advantage in style against us or something. And I remember Olaf Meister was just fucking raging, like, they're all just lucky. It's all just bullshit. They're just like this, they just play like idiots. And I said, dude, you have JW on your team. How can you say that? And he was getting like offended, like, what are you talking? He plays properly. And I was like, have you seen how bad you're getting right now? You're talking about their playing tactics. You've got JW just running around corners like, this gun's OP. It's like, look, like fucking Timo of CSGO or something, isn't he? Since you just joined the call, you have to come with a topic.
Okay.
Hit us with something.
All right. So, what does the success of Overwatch League mean for NA LCS and EU LCS and LCS in general? Is there something that they should change after seeing the success of the Overwatch League? Because they're
Wait
competitors.
a minute. Oh, like, I'm actually so shocked right now because I thought you meant like the potential success of the Overwatch League, but you actually mean the success now.
Mm-hmm. Current success. What does that mean? What does that mean for NA LCS? If I'm Riot Games and I look at Overwatch League, I mean, right now, let's see. This stream has what 104,000 viewers. That's about what NA LCS normally polls on an average day. Maybe TSM plays, they get 200K.
Okay,
but they're getting. We'll say for the example's sake, let's say they get comparable viewer numbers. All right. What is that? If I'm Riot, do I look at Overwatch League and go, we should change things up? Or do I say, nah, I'm keeping everything the same. I'm not worried about Overwatch.
Well, the big problem I see there is that this is where actually I think the people who are the LCS teams might end up getting pissed off, is because, remember, it's not like Riot themselves ever particularly seemed to want to do a franchise system. Like, they were putting it off forever. In fact, that's what obviously that stupid like Tryndamere shit where he was like, I love me some Reggie. Like, that's all that shit came from, wasn't it? So the problem with that is, like, remember, there's actually no incentive generally for Riot to do esports stuff because obviously they just do it as marketing for the game. Their main way of making money is from League of Legends, the game.
Yeah.
So the big problem I have is, I feel like, just my own theory, I feel like a big part of why they did the franchising is because of Overwatch League, and I think all these teams would just have Overwatch slots instead, rather than have an LCS slots. Whereas if you notice, it tended to be a pretty even divide. What happened is most people came LCS or Overwatch League. So for me, it was like a play to get all the teams back into their league and not have everyone just desert them. Because no matter what they say, if like 8 or 9 of the teams in the league just leave tomorrow, it'd definitely fuck the whole league up and it'd look terrible, you know. So with that said, the big problem I think the LCS teams will run into, and I can't speak out of school because I'm not certain, but if they have to rely on Riot to sell the sponsorships, it's not actually like they're not involved and they just sit back and, you know, they have to hope Riot lands all these deals. Yeah, I could see a world in which maybe Overwatch League can do better sponsorship deals and get more money through the door, and whether it's a better league or not is irrelevant, but could succeed in that sense. Whereas in LCS, I don't really know what's driving that. Like, can the teams actually push Riot to do a better job? Because obviously, like, for example, the only big deals they've signed was that stupid, like, ML BAM deal that no one knows what the fuck is even happening with that. It might just dissipate up its own arse or something. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a bit dodgy, that one, because I don't feel like to Riot there's as much of a connection to you or I there might be. And obviously you should contrast them, but sadly, I think Riot lives in the real world. I mean, part of the reason why that Tryndamere post ever happened is that's the sort of shit top Riot people think in their brains. They're the sort of people who live in their own fantasy world where they think like, we created all of this for you. And it's like, well, you created some of it, but obviously we played a role as well. It's like if the dude who made football was like, Real Madrid, you know, you basically owe me everything. It's like, I don't owe you everything, do I? I owe you some, but I did all the rest myself. Like, come on.
And they didn't even create, they just copied Dota. It's like a worse version.
No, there's a lot of creativity in making a much, much worse version of Dota that doesn't function in any good ways. That takes talent.
Yeah, this is not Power Ranger, this is Ash.
Yeah.
Fucking stun AoE. Yeah.
They took half of all the same abilities and just shuffled around. And
No, but here's the thing.
That's the creativity.
I'm not even just hating. Like, yeah, I said that sarcastically, but in a strange way, they have been a lot more successful than DotA. Like, there's a reason why DotA is a free game and more people don't play it.
Yeah.
Like, as in totally free. You don't even have to grind the IP like a little slave in a fucking factory somewhere. Remember, you know the genius of when you're grinding for those like worthless IP points is that, remember, you're basically playing like a casino prop to make up a match for someone who is paying.
And
there wouldn't be enough players, would there?
At like 10 or something. It's just not a good use of time.
Yeah. But don't worry, they made it easier now.
Yeah. I do think, so coming back to that, I do think that especially ULCS might benefit a bit. So in the interview that Duncan did with the Immortals guy, it was basically, I really liked what he said about, we're not thinking about, are we going to win this time? We're thinking about, can we sell like 1 million tickets in 5 years or something? Obviously, that's part bullshit, but at least you won't get into the trouble of right now that most of the EU teams are not very good, which is like the Carlos Ocelot point about all these teams should get out and we should get real investment.
That's what Forgiven said. He said, why would I come back to EU? Why would I come back when unless I'm playing on Fnatic or G2, what's the point?
Here's the thing though, and by the way, don't worry, I will one day make my own video on this point, but it's a pretty good one. So think about this. All the NA owners, fans, players talk as though it's obvious that EU's doing it all wrong, right? They're not doing it the way we do. They don't market the players, they don't have as many Twitter followers. Here's my question for you. If that's true, why would anyone be trying to get in the NA LCS? If there's all this easy money in a landscape that hasn't even been tapped, what, you've got diamond mines that no one's tapped yet? Why am I trying to cut in on your diamond mine when I could go make my own in Europe? Why don't I just go to Europe now? Cheaper teams, infrastructure cheaper, players cheaper. Go over there, make the best EU LCS squad, get all the marketing dollars, get all the interested fans, dominate the fan market there, and make all the money in the world. I think it's because it's not possible. Like, I think there's so many like factors that have to do way beyond the teams. I don't doubt some of them are shit as well, because I think it's like the equivalent of having a low income neighborhood, isn't it? On top of it, you're going to get all problems that come with that. But the low income part definitely isn't fucking up. We're all starting at like a terrible position, aren't we? So I feel like that's like a super tough question, that one, the ULCS one. I don't know if it could succeed, basically.
What about the football clubs that are coming in? Do you think that could be, like, some people do say that they see it most as marketing and that might work, but maybe not sustainable.
I feel like the thing is, though, it's just like, how do you generate interest in EU LCS? And I feel like the majority of NA LCS viewers are from NA. So the real question is, how do you either up the European interest in EU LCS, or how do you up the NA interest in EU LCS? Because obviously you have the hardcore fans who will watch EU LCS because they want to see what happens with the best EU teams or whatever, or they just love the game that much. But how do you get Joe Blow TSM fan to watch EU LCS? And I feel like that's a pretty complicated.
Well, I mean, there's an obvious first point that is probably impossible, right? How is he going to watch in terms of hours on the clock?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to play the game at midnight so he can watch on the West Coast. So he probably can't, right?
Yeah.
But you can get, like, who cares about Schalke? If you get Real Madrid and Manchester United, they have shitloads of fans. Like, that would get Asian people watching. Like, if you could get better clubs, I think that would help.
I mean, I guess, but PSG flopped mostly because they had a trash team, and then they said, we're not going to go long term with this.
No one is a supporter of PSG. Like, only French people are supporters of PSG.
But DAE French crowds. But realistically,
maybe there's no solution.
I think it's kind of tough. Generating interest in EU is like, I feel like whenever
Here's the thing, I do love it though, because remember, what we were told was the LCS model would see like increases in viewership and would see like better business opportunities and all this. Well, okay, cool. What are you waiting for, Riot? Sorry, am I getting in your way of the last 10 years of esports? I mean, I don't want to step on your toes while you're reinventing the wheel, but this square wheel you're working with, it's not really rolling very well, homie. What are you waiting for?
Especially for the bumpy ground.
I'm waiting for the love me some ocelot post. Love me. Oh, sorry, Carlos. Love me some Carlos, but who knows? I guess it's a tough question to answer. I feel like whenever I bring up ELCS, the imaginary Twitch chat just all goes resident sleeper. But
Yeah,
I've always loved that as well, by the way. The people who actually, in terms of the real level of play, say that like NA LCS is better than a ULCS. Like, in what universe?
no.
In what universe is that better to watch? It's not. There's an obvious reason why, isn't there? It's because you just like those players, have a more of an emotional connection with them, therefore their play matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a start off, it's all garbage compared to LCK. That's not even debatable.
Yeah, I mean,
but guess what? That's actually one of the reasons why LCK isn't as fun to watch, because you don't have the same emotional connection to the players, even in Korea, because so many of them left, etc. And it's like, right, who's this new guy? Oh, do I have to get to know his whole past and shit? You know.
Now
Faker sucks.
Now people still only care about Faker. They think like the relationship between Peanut and Prairilla is cute. Oh, it's so cute.
It's because, unfortunately, that's like the...
Cute, like I'm Loco Doco.
That's actually what Korean fans are like, though.
Yeah.
Basically, Korean fans are literally... It's not even an exaggeration. Korean fans literally are like fans of pop music. That's what. Yeah, that's the
K-pop.
role.
They apply the same K-pop standards just to esports. Makes me sick. It makes me disgust. It makes me feel gross.
Well, it's like, for example, there's actually a girl in League of Legends who's like branded herself for years like, I'm the biggest flame fan ever. And it's like, I couldn't be more disgusted with anyone. You make me sick. Especially because her whole logic isn't even like, oh, look, it's laning. It's like, he's so good looking, isn't it? Get a life,
get out of here.
Get a life. Get a life. Boo. Boo. Get off the stage.
God. Good grief, Charlie Brown. This is
unreal, isn't it?
You just described
Jesus, man.
You just described every fan of Jake.
Every girl who watches Overwatch League in a sentence.
That's also why.
Not actually, but
that's also why Overwatch League has so many bad fans. They've got so many fans that are like that, like that are just like. It's weird because to be fair, it's like if you're a woman, somehow you get really creepy and obsessive, but you don't stalk and murder the person. So fair play, you deserve credit for that.
Well,
but they are almost at that level though. Like, you know, where like their avatars, the guy, the fucking banners, like them with the guy, like every single post, like, I will protect it. I will, like you know, like, just like you're just fucking disturbing.
Yeah, it's like, what if he does something you don't like, like stab him with a pair of scissors and like, hello?
I can't tell you, I follow a lot of the teams on Twitter, and I can't tell you how many like shitty fan arts I've seen the teams retweet of like the players. It's bad, man. It's so much bad, man.
I love the ones where someone posts a selfie of them with the player and they just look normal in the selfie and they're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. You probably could tell I was so nervous to meet you. It's like, he didn't give a fuck, man. You just met 17 people in a row. You literally exited his mind the second you crossed over his shoulder. It's like you may as well not even exist at that point again. Like, you know, you could run back up, bitch slap him in his face. He wouldn't even notice the person's murder.
You know what they are? They're like that guy from that Jamie Foxx played in that terrible Spider-Man movie, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where like he thought that Spider-Man loved him, but then when Spider-Man met him, he was just like, he's like, wait, who are you again? And then he had a mental breakdown. That's all. So that's Overwatch League fans. Except without the horrifying electronic superpowers.
Yeah.
We found the new analogy, boys.
Because the sad thing is, like, this is one of the things people don't realize about me, is I'm actually not one of those people who just throws around the term like social justice warrior just if someone disagrees with me. I'm not exaggerating. As someone who has like quite a lot of experience of like reading social justice warrior stuff on the internet, it's not that they're similar. There is a literal overlap with the really mentally ill Overwatch League fans and real social justice warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like nearly all the hit pieces against Overwatch are from literal, not just social justice warriors. The people who spawned Gamergate are literally the ones now writing the same hit pieces about Overwatch. It's madness.
Thank you, Grayson.
You know, it'd be bad if it was just like they were similar people. No, it is the same people.
Yeah.
And then the mad thing is I have to sit there and watch like Red Eye trying to explain to them like, no, guys, if you just listen to me, I'll explain to you what gaming's really about. It's like, mate, they don't give a fuck. Have you been missing something or whatever?
That's for some reason, I don't know. I see Red Eye like tweeting out all these articles all the time.
Oh, he loves it, doesn't he? He doesn't realize he's like inadvertently their fucking hype man, isn't he?
Well, I
Look at this. Everyone here, click on this bloody article and teach these guys a lesson for making this article that they make money off from clicks.
I tried to tell him this on Twitter the other day, and he was like, well, they're a dying medium. And I was like, well, you're helping them live. You
are literally just giving them free money. You're giving them exactly what they want. No, I'm not.
It's like
it's because the problem is there's a lot of people. I get it, right? This is actually, believe it or not, if you ever read that book, Social Justice Warriors Always Lie, it's one of the main mechanisms they rely upon to thrive, which is that most people are reasonable. So even if someone initially disagrees with you or you don't like them, part of you feels like, well, I'm a reasonable person. I'm sure they are on some level. So if I can just get through to them in some way, or if, you know, say eventually, probably the most bizarre part with Social Justice Warrior people is sometimes you think to yourself, okay, I found some common ground. Like, you know, with the we're aligned on this, it'd be in your self-interest to be on my side. No, their side is whatever side you're not on, and the people they want to be destroyed are you at all times. Like, that's their whole MO. That's why the joke is you can never please them. Like, if they say, I'm only here to bring awareness to the lack of LGBT characters in this game, if you put one in, then the next article is like, why is there only one LGBT character? Okay, right, we've put more in now. Well, where are all the disabled people? It's like, you know, that's the whole point. They weren't even being honest with their original position. Like, if they really, like, if it was like that movie, Liar, Liar, you remember the classic Jim Carrey movie where the whole concept is, it's not even that he can't lie, it's that he has to actually say the truth. That's the real concept, right?
Yeah.
Well, if they had to do that, what those social justice warrior people would actually do is they just basically say, I just want to control this whole scene. And you go, what the fuck? Where did that come from? Why though? But you're not even in this scene. Yeah, but I've seen this scene full of people that I don't know, and I don't have a lot of power in my real life, and I want to control this whole scene. Like, but if they said that, you'd know immediately, you'd go, right, well, let's definitely not negotiate with this guy, deal with them. But because instead what they're saying is things like, I just want equality, and I just want... Then people, sadly, like Red Eye and other people in esports who don't know them, will think this is a person who's just, you know, they're just ignorant. Like, if they got to know, they'd be very reasonable. It's like, they won't, mate. Like, this is not this is an example of someone you can't deal with. It's like trying to negotiate a pit bull down when it's right near your throat. Like, it's nothing you can say to it at that point in time, is it?
Nope.
You had to do that negotiating a long time ago.
There's a
now
certain...
you just need to get a fucking steak gun.
There's a certain point where people can be changed, and there's a certain point where they can't.
Well, especially if they don't want to change. Like, why
They're
would
not
they?
at the, Those people are definitely not at the point where they can change.
Like, the funny thing is, this is why a cool guy to check out, like, I'm not saying cool as in like everything he says is cool, he's like a wicked guy, but just an amazing example of this is a guy who I did an interview with on my second channel, Ian Miles Chong, is one of the main journalists who exposes social justice warrior stuff. And the reason he does it is because he was not just a social justice warrior, he was in with the exact same group of like the Zoe Quinns of the world. He was in their group.
Yep.
And he left and changed his mind. He's like one of those guys who like, he's like a born again sane person. I don't know, non-moron, you know. So as a result, it's what's mad is he'll even explain like all the reasons you do it. Because what you don't realize, this is probably one of the most crazy like epiphanies you'll get if you look into this topic from their perspective. So naively, when you see them like fucking up the world and being horrible to everyone, what you might naively think is right. But when they get sort of back to the evil headquarters in their like Skype group, surely they at least have fun with each other and they go, you know what, we really wrecked all those Nazis and, you know, we've took over this. No, that mentality and ideology goes to the very atom level of even their own social groups. So in their own social groups, everyone's trying to one-up each other on who's the most virtuous and trying to say, oh, what you just said is problematic. And then they're all so scared that they're going to get outed by the other one. And they're all saying things behind each other's back, but then they're so worried that some of that's going to get out and someone's going to... Because remember, the whole point of like stupid purity tests is no one can really pass. Everyone's said something or done something or thought something or isn't woke enough, you know. So what's mad is they're not even having fun themselves. They're being like tortured by each other to the nth degree. Like there really isn't any winning for them. That's the maddest thing, which is also though, by the way, why they don't care if everyone loses and the whole thing gets ruined. Because this is another thing people don't think about. They don't actually have real self-interest beyond getting power. Because if the option is, and you see this in video games and comics now, if the option is, like, they get their way, so you get these characters that are all written by transgender people or something, right? But then the problem is, remember their whole principle of why they wanted it is because I'm a transgender person and I don't see representation, so I don't feel like I can connect with the character. You know what? You're right. I could understand that. But here's the problem you haven't thought of, is if that's really a mechanism that most people apply, then when you make a character like that, there's not going to be a big audience, is there? So it's probably going to fail commercially. So when it fails commercially, they never say, well, what I just said there, well, actually, there's a logic to it. And you know what? Maybe this should be a small indie book or it should be an amateur thing that I do. What they do is they say, fuck it, we'll burn this whole industry to the ground if we can't have it. That's the mentality. It's like that classic thing, Solomon, when he decided whose mother it was, which I'm not really sure that was the most reasonable fucking maternity test. But you know the famous story where there was one woman who'd stolen a baby and the original mother of the baby goes to court. Don't know why this is in court before the fucking king. Sounds like a made-up story, but anyway, in the made-up story, the king, who's got nothing better to do with his time than decide which slag popped out this little cretin, goes, right, tell you what, because this is definitely a reasonable thing to say, just cut this baby in half and give half to it. Give half of a dead baby to each of these live women. There we go. I am the wisest man who ever lived. And then what happened is, in the story, the real mother of the child, obviously, is the only one who actually loved the child. So she goes, no, in that case, just give the baby to her so that she can look after it and it'll be alive. And then Kim Solomon goes, see, I actually knew that was going to happen. Honest. And that means you are the real mother, even though obviously in my version, there's a post-credit scene where she just goes, the stupid fuck. I knew all along he would do this. I actually stole this child. And then you see that actually no one wins out in the end. But that's the post-credit scene that I added. So anyway, in the same scenario, that's what the SJW people are like. Like, it's not just that they want to try it their way. Like, it has to be their way only. And they will literally burn the whole thing to the ground and let it all get ruined. So you can't negotiate with someone who's willing to nuke us all if they lose. You know, there has to be a way to de-escalate eventually.
Crazy that that's what human beings.
But enough about the Overwatch League. Enough about the Overwatch League.
Classic.
I get it every week.
It's too much, isn't it? Sad thing is, I would be so confused right now if I'd never looked into all that shit years ago. I'd be thinking, what the fuck's going on? Who are these? Who is Brianna Wu? Sadly, I only know too well.
Oh,
anyway,
God.
Just leave that topic there, right? Let's bring up a new topic.
Rocks from the moon.
So now that you can, were you going to say something?
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Now that Kingzone lost, like, you made a video not long ago saying this might now be might become the best team of all time. Do you think now that's no longer a possibility, or do you think this could be just a blip and they will come back stronger?
The way I see it either goes one of two ways. Either A, they get their shit together and become they took their one loss and realized, like, oh my God, like, we could be so much better, and then they become the best team, or they just completely crumble like the other Rocks Tigers team did, and that's that. Because I mean, they already have a core three from Rocks, so you know. I feel like this story keeps repeating itself. It's like, when will Peanut and Prayrilla finally win an international event? Only time will tell, because at this point, Prey's actually going to be 30 by the time he wins MSI or Worlds. So who knows?
The problem is, though, if you look at this tournament now, so the people who underperformed the most was probably in this order, Khan and then probably Peanut.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, I think Peanut's always had some sort of like anxiety issues in big moments. So that's not that big a surprise to me. And then for the Khan one, the reason why I find that really weird is he's only failed 2 tournaments. It's not like he's been to like 4 Worlds and 3 MSI. Like, he's only been to 2. He's been a 2, and I admit he had some shit games. Not as bad at Worlds, but obviously he got outplayed in the quarterfinals. So it's not the end of the he's definitely not like locked into being terrible forever. And then also, I have a real hard time counting that first one, the Worlds, as too seriously, because that was when he had that Cos guy as his jungler.
That's true.
Try being a top lane carry and not having a good jungler. Are you fucking kidding me? What do you think the number one complaint of every top laner is? I was being camped by the jungler. It's like, I didn't even have one. I was just 1v2 and you cunts all day long.
I mean, but the thing is, though, is that Khan is losing. Well, I don't even know RNG's top laner's name. Like, if Khan is going to be putting up these performances like against actually good top laners in LCK, why is he having trouble like 1v1ing against whoever the fuck that guy is? I don't like. And it's like, also, I feel like BDD also shit the bed. Granted, he's also young, so I can't tell. I mean, sure, Uzi was out there fucking caving heads in, like he was like someone was gonna like there was someone at home when like the Chinese, like the Communist Party was at home with his mom on the line with a gun to her head saying, if you don't win this event for China, like she's gone, like say goodbye. But the fact that Kingzone just completely decided that they didn't have thumbs anymore.
Well, one of the weird things about Koreans actually in general is because they practice in such a methodical way, and the way they break the game down is so methodical. Like they literally have a logic and a reason and a process as to how they did everything and how they practice everything and why they do everything. It actually means that when they play each other, it's very logical as to who wins the game. Like famously, if you get behind in the jungle in Korea, you don't do some like mental out invade right after to try and get some ballsy ass. No, you just go, right, I'm slightly behind, try not to get much further behind, try to still place wards and go to my little, like try and counter gank. Like you sort of think, right, well, there's a logical way to play. And so the good thing is if you're in the lead, you have a sense of how the other guy's going to play. Well, the fucking Chinese players have always been like, in general, except for like one or two teams ever, they've generally always been the teams that are like willing to do really risky shit and do stuff that like seemingly doesn't follow the protocols of what you're supposed to do in the game right now. So it's literally like an extreme version of that old like saying, like, you know, the best swordsman shouldn't fear the second best swordsman. He fears a man who's never held a sword. Yeah. Well, in this example, it's like not only is this guy never held a sword in terms of like, you know, they don't do perfect macro strategy and all this sort of shit, but they're also like just as skilled as you. That's terrifying.
They didn't just lose to the Chinese, man. They lost a bunch of stupid games.
Bunch of best of ones, okay, sure.
But let's slow down. Let's not pretend like whoever the fuck RNG's top laner is as good as Khan. Nor are we gonna like. If I look at RNG, I go, okay, their bot lane's good, their mid laner's good. If Karsa's playing, then they actually have an international tiered jungler. But if MLXG's playing, that dude, I don't even know what the fuck that guy does anymore. That guy, yeah, as far as I could tell, he was just a feed bot that somehow managed to make his way through LPL. And then top lane, like I said, I literally don't know this guy's name, so I can't comment.
Yeah, but it's League of Legends, mate. Like, problem is team strength has never been that big a deal. Like, remember some of the teams that lost to like Unicorns of Love or whatever the fuck over the years? Like, it just means nothing, doesn't it? Like, that's one of the things I think is so lame about League of Legends. Is because a game is one entity. It's not that it snowballs in the literal sense, but like it's like if you say you could divide up a game into rounds, like just in your own mind. It would be like if the economy never had a reset in Counter-Strike. So if you won the first 7 rounds, you know what? Yeah, you still might kill me a bunch of the next ones, but I'd have money to buy for the next 4 or something. You know, like
you have a bazooka in the head.
Think about what a nightmare that would be. And not only that, yeah, you can buy better guns, and there's just no limit to how good the guns get. Until a certain point. My favourite point ever about League of Legends, because it's so dumb, is the fact that you have all this mad inequality, and then at a certain point, there's just no more item slots, so we can't get any more money, and now we're all just at max anyway. I never understood that. Who made that part of the game? That is so mental, isn't it?
Can't get any stronger. Well, guess it's time for them to get stronger. And
then it's like, you know, when you play one of those games, and it's like a 70-minute game, and you've got a lease in, and it's like, mate, you stopped being useful about fucking 2 hours ago. What are you doing right now? What are you going to do right now? Yeah. Meanwhile, they've got like a Shyvana jungler, like sound, so he's built full tank then. Well, this game is impossible to win now.
And you lost. There it goes.
That's kind of why, I don't know. That's why I was pissed they removed like the potions and stuff like that, like ways to be more powerful past 6 items. And that's kind of what.
The red pot, the potions still exist, but you can only have one active, and there's only 3. There's red pot, the iron pot, or whatever, and then there's the one for mages. So,
right. Like what I would say about Kingzone is this: like, first of all, even Uzi I don't think normally plays at that level. I think he like absolutely hit like peak form the whole time.
Fucking world beater Uzi I.
So even a little bit less, I think it'd be a very close final. Then you've got to add in, we don't need both of these players to come, but if just one of the Kingzone players plays better, it's also probably a win for them. And then finally, you've got to add in who's going to beat them. Like when they go back to LCK, I still think they'll win LCK.
Oh, they should still win LCK.
And then if everyone, here's the weird thing, right? Everyone's happy to write off Kingzone, but I don't see anyone guaranteeing RNG is going to win Worlds. Why not?
No.
By the same logic, they should be winning Worlds, right?
Well, people are still saying that China's chances at Worlds are going up. I mean, between RNG
seems plausible. I thought they could have won the last Worlds. So
they probably could have. I mean, realistically, the top 2 teams from China will be good. I don't even know who. Like the 3rd seed will probably be like WE or something, but they haven't looked good. So, but it's between RNG and IG really, like who's gonna play better. But IG actually has to do well in playoffs first. But out of Korea, I agree with you that Kingzone should still win, but the 2nd and 3rd teams are going to be so much stronger. Like if Afrika keeps performing, if Afrika keeps performing, then that'll be really exciting to see them at an international event. And then the 3rd team, it's like, okay, which team between KT, SKT, and I guess Generation G can do their best?
Because I think people forget, when you look at how ridiculously dominant some of the old Korean teams are, they all have Faker on them. Like, it's not really fair to compare, is it? It's like going, why isn't this current NBA team as good as the one with Michael Jordan? Shut the fuck up. You just answered your own question, didn't you? It's not fair. Yeah. It's not a fair question, is it? What, we're supposed to judge everyone by that standard, are we? Come on, man. Like, this is the sick thing. In a world without Faker, this is already what the world would be like. You'd have the best Korean team, and generally, they should win, probably like 70% of the time. But then China would have like a solid 20% every time, and then maybe 10% for, believe it or not, there probably would by now have been, some Western team that did it, just one off. Like, if anything, that's why I do, like, obviously to some degree I just bag on NA because it's funny, but the other reason I bag on them is, it's like, at this point in time, these cunts couldn't trip over and win a match. Like, it's actually unbelievable how underwhelming NA has been at national, if you think about it.
Yeah,
they almost couldn't do worse. Like, how could they do worse? You'd have to take all the money away from them, all the imports. Like, they've got every advantage, and they're still having all these problems, So that's just underwhelming as fuck, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, remember in CSGO, a game that arguably is harder to win a championship in, when you're talking about a major, we've already had like Cloud9 a fucking Gambit win.
Yep. Meanwhile, somewhere
we still haven't had NA make top 4. We're still waiting.
Yep. Somewhere in an underground layer, Reggie's plotting his revenge.
Even in Dota, NA's won TI. Like, goddamn.
Woohoo, guys! Like, we did it. We're still bad.
Although, actually, one of the things I will say, though, I think this is actually one of the factors as to why they were better in Dota, is because in Dota, they also, like, crammed the talent into fewer teams. Mm-hmm. Whereas I always thought the stupidest thing about the NA LCS was, I don't think I've ever, except for, like, that TSM team, which unfortunately did flop Worlds.
Yep.
There's never been anything approaching a super team, in my opinion, in LCS. It was always way too spread out with the talent, Like, you'd have, Special was on this team, and then Double F was on this other team, and then some other sick top laner was on this other team, and then the best jungler wasn't even on any of their teams. It's like, who's putting together these teams?
See, that's what makes you kind of disappointed that TL did so badly, because you'd think that maybe finally, you could get that CLG Core 3 that dumpstered TSM in season 5. Then you've got a solid tank top player and Impact. He's willing to take less farm, so Pole Belter and Double Lift can get more farm. You've got a good, solid, macro jungler next Smithy. Pole Belter's always been really good for an NA mid laner. He's actually the only NA-born mid laner in LCS now. So, but you'd think that they'd finally be able to do it. And nope. We still suck. We still suck.
Problem is, though, I'll never be able to get over how whack League of Legends is, though, because this is the first international tournament we saw this Team Liquid team at.
That's true.
Right, you know how many all-time great Counter-Strike teams would have no legacy if they got judged on their first tournament?
Oh, none.
Yeah. Okay, so best CSGO team of all time, most people say Fnatic, right?
Yeah.
Now, they are amazing. Like, their first 2 tournaments, they finished top 4 and made the final. But at their first tournament, they lost to Very Games with Kenny S and fucking Existence and NBK in the semi-finals. Now imagine if that meant you were like, see, you'll never live up to any potential, you can't make it. No, because you know what's a good thing? About a week later or 2 weeks later was the major, then they made the final. You know what, still didn't win. Then after that, they went to that tournament where they got rocked out by Titan, where Kaylee potentially hacking his tits off. Now we've had like 3 or 4 tournaments, still haven't won one yet, boys. Then they started winning everything for a long time. So, problem is, League of Legends will never have that, will it? They're wasting their time with these shit leagues.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is like, all it takes is like the appeal of like either playing in Korea again or someone with a larger wallet than you, and all of a sudden, bye-bye Impact, bye-bye Olay. There that goes.
That was also beyond tilt-worthy, that shit where it was like, Ole will be removing himself from the game. Just remove yourself from life, mate. Get out.
Yeah.
Get out the door.
I am bad player.
Like, how could you ever trust that player again after that?
Peter deserves better. I've been watching this shitter play in Academy, and he's okay. He can right-click and use support items. Put him in. But I don't know, dude. I don't know. If you're that mentally fragile, like what are you doing competing at all? Like if you get that down on yourself from like 1 or 2 bad games.
Yeah, but that's really the problem with esports. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Probably 80% of people who play esports don't really have like a winner's mentality. It's just that what happens is they're just good at a game. So because they're good at a game, they get in a position where, you know what, it's not that they don't have it's not that they can't play at all. They like to compete, they like to win. They just don't have like a killer instinct. There's very few people have that, in fact, So unfortunately, you get loads of people who end up at the level where it's like, some of them are okay losing, some of them bizarrely. Probably the weirdest one, I mean, I think this even happens to people like Device, who are some of my favorites. They actually are more terrified of losing than they would be happy to win. So that just, that becomes like a mad compass dragging them down at all points away from where they want to go.
Yeah, that's why I really enjoyed your recent video with Forgiven. The fact you said, I don't enjoy the game, but I love the competition. How many players in League of Legends actually felt that way? You could say it for like Samsung White. The fact that Mata and Dandy immediately went and hugged each other and not the rest of their teammates after they won Worlds. Like, can definitely see that there are players that are like they get along because they know they play well together. But how many teams have imploded just because like I don't like this guy? Even Forgiven's own teams, they kick him out because one person doesn't like him.
Yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, let's kick our best player. Why? He was mean to me.
Well, that's also one of my favorites as well, is that story, which is absolutely accurate, that like Forgiven would already have been playing with Afrobu and CLG. But what happened is CLG kept saying like, we'll give you a trial. You can come and trial. And if you were Forgiven, you were like, I'm better than everyone in your team. Why would I trial? But the problem is, I told him, if you just jump through the hoops, you'll be in their team. Like, I still think both parties fucked it up, but he also fucked it up as well. But the dumb thing about that is, like, there's a bunch of moves that could have happened. Like, that's also why it's not entirely fair to say, like, NA had everything, because there's loads of really good EU players who could have gone, obviously, years ago and been excellent, but who gives a fuck, right?
Instead we have fucking Stixay. We get this guy.
High level talent right there.
Yeah, fucking. Oh, my challenger league ADC isn't doing well. I just can't figure it out.
Hey, it's even worse than Overwatch, dude. All the All the Western players.
Yeah, but Overwatch, Overwatch League is going to become Apex 2.0.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what it's going to be. There's no import rule, you know?
It's going to be even worse next season.
It's going to be, people thought StarCraft 2
get all the contenders players.
Yeah, all right, dude. I look forward to seeing Runaway in Overwatch League. That's all I have to say.
The only reason why Overwatch League isn't like entirely Koreans at this point is basically because all the best Koreans that aren't in the league are too young. That's basically
or the Runaway ones just like as a team didn't want to come or something mad because they wanted to stay together as a team, I think, and see if they get an offer next season or some shit.
Yeah. And then like the signing windows and stuff. But yeah, it's going to be worse than StarCraft 2. All of a sudden, there's just going to be a buttload of Koreans, and everyone's be like, but what about the American players? Like, well, they suck, mate, don't they? Wanted to watch NA players watch contenders. You want to watch some good Overwatch? Well, cool. Watch Overwatch League.
Yep.
Let's do one last topic, because I think it's getting late now. I need to go to bed at some point. So let's do one last topic to close it out on.
No, Thorin, you have to be like the horse from Animal Farm. I will work harder. I will work harder. And I had another one of those what's next in CSGO topics.
Okay.
What is next for SK?
Our favorite team.
Yes, I mean,
see, here's the problem. There was some news that changes that, because I actually naively thought that the whole point of getting Stewie 2K was because they knew, well, in a few months we're going to Immortals. So basically, it's sort of like a 3-month trial. Like, if it works out, cool, we'll figure something out. Well, if you saw recently that story from DK, where he said that Stewie 2K was the highest buyout ever in CSGO.
It's insane, man.
And here's the detail. Here's the kicker. Highest buyout by Immortals.
Yeah.
As in, he's there, mate.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, he's not going anywhere when they go from SK to Immortals. He's there. So they've gone all in on this motherfucker.
Isn't there a return policy? And it was a lot of money. Like,
come on, Noah.
Thrown around. Jesus.
Come on, Noah. You had a chance. You had a chance to get simple. You said, nah, mate. This Stewie 2K guy, he's legit.
No, he was going to pay more for simple. But
so the problem with that, really, unfortunately, is like, it just seems if you really paid that much, it'd seem a bit crazy to just give up after 3 months. You're probably going to ride it out and see where it goes, because like, you're probably not going to make a fraction of that selling him back to someone, especially if his stock's gone down. So the real issue for me is, like, for me, Stewie 2K was like in the no man's land, where it's like, he's a good player and probably could be part of a championship team, but he's not quite good enough to make it worth justifying switching from Portuguese to English and then changing all the roles. So that's why I feel like they fell in the no man's land. Like, they should have probably given up on the idea of getting a star if they couldn't get a star, because they couldn't, apparently. So their problem was they did that. I don't blame them, because it's very hard when you make rosters. This tends to be what happens. What happens is you come in thinking, right, I want a really good team. I want a great player here. And then they say, you can't get that one. What about the second or third best player? Nah, he's not available. Fourth best player. Right, okay, you know what? I guess he's decent. But I'm going to have to get good players elsewhere. Then you go to the next position, right? Can I get this? Oh, I can't. And what you end up with is, at the end, you go, fuck, I haven't even got a good team here, but it's because I compromised on every position, and in the end, you're like, why am I spending all this money if I've got like the 10th best team? But that is what will happen, unfortunately. You can't really buy success in the same way.
At that point, might as well just like take a chance on KNG again. Well, what was the point? What was the point of going all the way down the list saying, fuck, why not just keep the same roster? Or change, like, go for another Brazilian player? What was the point? Let's get Stewie 2K, He had that one. Yeah.
Tell me, what do you think is next for SK?
They'll trade Stewie for Elige, and Elige will speak in Portuguese. That's the old rumor from a year ago.
My question, though, would be, what's Elige getting out of that part of the deal?
I don't know, but there's no good solution. It's this. What do they do? Yeah. Can they throw away? Like, they can't. Mentally, they can't get over the fact that they pay this amount of money. So even if they wanted to, like, you just can't justify. You'd have to fire someone for that. Like, how can you justify that decision? It's just so hard.
Bolts, get the fuck out. What did I do? Someone had to go.
Well, I mean, ironically, he's
possible. Yeah,
if they do make a roster change, he's probably going to be the guy who gets kicked out.
he has.
Well, that was also the implication, by the way, is that he basically knew he was already kicked when they were going to get Flamey as well as Simple, and then they had to do the classic. It's basically, if you follow basketball, it's the whole reason Lamar Odom started to spiral in his life, wasn't he? Because he just got told, yeah, you were just traded for Chris Paul. Oh wait, that trade's been rescinded, and he was like, "What the fuck?" And he was like, "I'll show you." And it's like, "Well, you did show us something, mate, but nothing good."
Yeah.
Put it out with.
I'll show you. And he proceeds to get addicted to crack or something.
Well, he did show us, but just not in the way he thought.
It was Lamar Odom who changed his name to Meta World Peace, right?
No, that was Ron Artest.
Yeah,
I see. Weren't they both dating Kardashians though? Wasn't that also
No.
catalyst?
That was
Ron.
Ron Artest
Ron?
definitely wasn't.
Okay.
Come on, mate. Ron Artest, that's not his taste in women. No, it was some other play. It was that guy for like the Cavaliers or something, wasn't it? That was
it was Tristan Thompson.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
He's
the
dating
one who does it.
Kardashian.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's
May God have mercy on his soul.
You see a world
Shouldn't
where
get
they
one.
get taco back? Sorry for interrupting.
Does what?
Do you see a world where they get taco back?
Oh,
Given enough time, yeah, why
Sure.
not? Like I think if say 6 months from now,
He's doing well.
Team Liquid's not getting as sick or whatever. If they ask him to come back, I think he'd fucking accept instantly. You know,
I'm pretty sure any Brazilian player who was an SK would definitely come back if asked.
Yeah.
You know, that's that's a Brazilian player's dream is to be in SK.
problem is I don't know if that solves it. Like I don't know that just putting back the same team together, like and now everyone stand in the same place and sing the song at the same time. Like, come on, I don't know if that works. Like,
No, probably not.
things have their time.
But Taco might get his confidence back now that Liquid is doing well. So that might help. I don't know.
Well, if Liquid does well, though, then why the hell would he leave?
Yeah, if he's doing better than SK, what's the point? Why would he go back?
I don't know. Speaking Portuguese to be with his Brazilian mates, I don't know. I mean, he does have a history.
But
It's your first love. You always go back.
Yeah, but he was paid by Steve. How much did Steve pay? And if he's getting paid more, then what's the point?
Yeah.
If you're getting paid more and you're doing better, well, I think I can get used to speaking this English thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll have another player who somehow has a worse hairline than he does.
That's why he wears that beanie all the time.
It doesn't anymore.
Yeah, well,
Can't. Rules against it, mate.
yeah. Stupid, isn't it? But yeah, I think SK just needs to. They've overcommitted to something that just doesn't work, and I feel like it's just gonna have to be more money either pissed away trying to fix it, or they're just gonna have to capitulate and go, we're rebuilding right now, and just be like accept that they're gonna suck.
Well, here's the angle no one thinks of. Are you ready for the real angle that would blow your mind?
I'm ready.
Go with the flow. Get more NA players.
Well, I mean, I guess.
Why not? You have a bunch of good bunch of good NA players plus Cold Zero. Not bad.
That could work. Assuming, I don't know, assuming...
The bigger issue for me is
how do you get rid of Fur?
How do you get rid of Fur?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Fur is deaf in one ear and likes to rush at the beginning of the round. Sounds like the ideal person to not have to speak our language. The person I'd get rid of is Fallen.
yeah, but then you need a new in-game leader.
We already do. He's just quit.
Yeah.
You know, he quit on the store. He literally Roberto Dinan, no mass. He didn't want any more of that fucking work that he was getting from Loaded Lux. Reference game, incredibly on point.
Yeah.
All third verse.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, it's like, God, I just don't know what to say then. Like,
because here's the thing: if I'm Fallen, right, it's true the politics of this, like how much money's involved, and you know you don't want to leave the team you start. Like that's all. Those are all really great reasons not to leave. But if it really gets into a scenario where you've tried everything, you've tried every combination, you've done everything you can think of, you can't get the players you want, I could see a world in which you put Fallen with totally different players. So you put him with FNX and Phelps and these other guys, but basically none of his current core. Maybe he would have a totally different approach to the game and it'd be amazing in its own way. I could see it happening too.
Yeah, a totally fresh rebuild for Fallen could work. It can definitely happen, but who knows?
That'd be hilarious, though. Oh, no, good.
No, you have a point. Go.
No.
No, really?
Go
I just think it's
first.
I still think it's funny that how is this still a problem that people are like, just quit being a bitch and just play the damn game. I don't want an in-game lead. I don't care. You're good at it. Sucks. Like,
I just love the comeuppance of it all because obviously people thought, these guys are going to be the best forever. And then they love to talk shit on all my favourite players when they have their bad moments. Okay, cool. So remember how y'all were going balls deep on Carrigan because he was losing in finals? Go and find me in Carrigan's career where he ever had talent like Cold Zero, Fur, Fallen, and was ever coming like last place or like 17th place in tournaments.
Nope, never happened.
Nah, he could have Jacob and fucking Kiyashima and stuff and be coming top 8 at big tournaments. Like, sit the fuck down.
Yeah, man.
So what's weird about that is people can't acknowledge it. Like, here's the thing. On the top end, when you have the championship roster, maybe Fallen's better. But when you don't have the championship roster, well, inarguable who's better. Fallen's had tons of teams that didn't do shit when they didn't have the championship roster. So that's the point. It's different skill sets, isn't it? Nobody's like the god leader that's figured it all out. And in fact, the sick thing about this lineup now is I don't know a single person who knows a reasonable solution to it because it just went so badly out of nowhere that it's done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it would be really funny. It would be really funny though if they moved over to the Made in Brazil brand and then immediately went and got all NA players.
That would be funny as fuck, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, here's the thing though. That's what people don't stop and think.
After trying to move there for so long.
You do realize the best reason for making it Made in Brazil, which by the way, indirectly, Noah Winston sort of addresses in the interview that I have as the third part of this one coming up, which is about CSGO, is this. One of the problems all those Brazilian players have is that naturally they are wild as fuck and do things that are politically incorrect. That doesn't work if you are playing for Cloud9 or Team Liquid because these idiots are selling their brand as like Disney brands. Like, I am family friendly and you can have any sponsors with me.
All right,
the whole point of Made in Brazil is the idea that you brand it as being Brazilian. Like, we're Brazilian. This is where we do shit. We fuck around with the bad boys. So actually that would be the perfect brand to have whatever Brazilians. You could have any of them in there. FNX, KNG, you could do whatever you wanted. You could actually go so many directions. And since they don't have the same sort of political correctness in Brazil, which presumably is going to be one of your target audiences, your fans are going to be loving it. It's not really going to be even a problem. You're not going to have threads like, fire this person. Like, in theory, it's a really smart business move, I think. Now, unfortunately, I feel bad for them that the success is tanked right when they're going to do it, but that can change around. That's the thing about Counter-Strike that makes it one of the toughest games to figure out is you can never really figure out where people are going to go. You can come up with good reasons, but it's like a great line that I can't remember who said it, but basically any explanation which comes after the fact isn't really worth a whole lot because you can always find factors after something's happened to explain why you think it happened. Because where's your skin in the game? Like, think about it. Why did this happen? I think because of this reason. Well, we can never test it, can we? The only way we'd know if you were right is if you found a similar scenario, you applied the same logic, and then it happened the way you thought it should. That's a prediction. What's mad about explanations is they are predictions for the past that you already know that don't even get borne out. It's quite mad, actually. So with roster moves, you never fully know which way they're going to go. You never know, for example, sometimes, like the Megas to Astralis one has to be the best example, right? This was a team that looked totally capped out at like top 4 finishes, and there was no reason to think Megas would transform them. And now they've not just become number 1, they might just go on like be the best team to ever play Counter-Strike or something mental like that. So you can't really know.
Scary. It's like,
terrifying.
No.
On that note of unbridled optimism and hype for Astralis, we end this episode of the Patreon discussion in true Thorin fashion. In the end, we can only conclude Device was the MVP. This video was made possible by Dean Tanglis, Sanity, G-Man, Andreas, Snazore, Westerlund, Alex Adams, Mikkel Hansen, Jerky's Minion, Anthony, Bash, Daniel Yordanov, Yordan Tsenkov, TTMXMP, VeXii, HawpT, Travis T. Greb. Just like my man, a lot of people think you can't tell me nothing. But I've graduated from that mindset, and now it is possible to have influence over some of the people I have on my shows, some of the topics I cover, to ask me questions directly and get exclusive teasers for upcoming projects I'm working on. Unlock the code to the streets and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link below.